a minute to let people fill in. Hello, everybody. Give you guys all a little bit of time to fill in. This is the Political Matrix. I'm your host, Young Morpheus, here with an illustrious colleagues. I have Mr. Cy Lawson there, and I have the Blue Maverick himself, Mr. Emmanuel. Um, we have a couple of topics to get into tonight, but I'm just going to take a little time to touch bases with my fellas before we get into everything tonight. Um, L was not able to join us, and we'll kind of go into that a little bit tonight. But hopefully all's well with everybody out there. Fellas, how are y'all doing tonight?
I'm good. I want to talk about what happened. I want to talk about what happened last week. I don't usually act like that. That's not usually my personality. I apologize for getting upset like that. Given the recent events, I've seen a TYT, right? You know, your past can come back and creep up on you. So I apologize. I spoke out of turn. I have way more humility. So I know what's happened within the last week, and I definitely don't, want to be, more significant in the future. And then somebody comes back and picks up some shit I said or did in the past. So let's clear that. I wanted to clear that up before we got started.
Oh, cool. How about yourself, Chris? How you doing? See variants there. Hey, variant.
Yeah, what's going on, Harry? What's up, guys? Yeah, ain't that much, man. Just been working, that's about it. Just working. My building owners told me today, not today, earlier this week, oh yeah, for your renewal, we're raising the rent for $100. I was like,
You see what he tweeted about that? He tweeted about that. He was like,
yeah, I didn't expect that. I got the email and was like, oh, you playing.
400. Yeah.
$400.
I'm like, I was expecting like, maybe $150 at max. Not even 200, but they said 400. That's why I thought they was playing. Like, there's a typo here.
I'm like, yeah, he just told me I'm moving. That's what he told me.
Like, bye. You've been here long enough.
I mean, when I was living in Florida, my rent was $490. I think it was like $490 a month before we moved to like $590. So up 400. Hell no, no way under the sun. I'll be paying that much.
Yeah, I had a 4-bedroom once for like $890, and it was a humongous 4-bedroom.
I'm like, okay, where were you at? In Tamiami or something?
No, I was on the west side of Florida.
Oh, I was what, up near that Brandon area?
Like Hillsborough area.
Oh, Hillsborough. I figured near Tampa. My cousin used to live out in Tampa and Brandon.
Okay.
I think they still live in Brandon.
Okay.
But yeah, let's go on ahead and get started.
Real quick though, before we get in, yo, E, I mean, you wasn't that bad last week, man. You just
I don't care. I don't know. You know what? And I wouldn't have even went into it, but after what happened with TYT, no, I'm cleaning it up now because
you're pet. You didn't say anything like what.
No, I mean it wasn't as bad as what Sank and Anna did, but still, our generation, our shit can come back on us. I'm not.
Yeah, but
I got more humility than that.
Here's one thing you got to remember also, because I'm probably the king of saying controversial stuff, especially amongst us. Saying it out loud. And occasionally, I stick my neck out there a little, and sometimes, I get a little heat back. But no, you didn't say anything wrong. And also, it was responding to what was said. You got to remember, what's way different than you getting a little upset and maybe somebody can take out of context something you said here or there. The difference between that and what TYT did is TYT used to sit down and make segments about stuff which while you're working through it, you should probably somewhere say, you know what, I probably shouldn't do this as a segment. I mean, I know they've scrubbed a lot of it, and Jimmy Dore, he showed like a good amount. It just kind of was like a refresher because I remember not only did they have a whose camel toe section is it, they had a did this person get by because of their boobs section. They had a hot or not. Is this person a celebrity because they're hot?
The bestiality one was the hilarious one to me.
Yeah, yes, the bestiality one.
That killed me. The bestiality one killed me.
You can see Anna getting uncomfortable and trying.
Right, I was like, oh my god.
Chris, I don't know. Do you know what we're talking about the TYT and the bestiality part?
Okay.
But for those,
I've seen a couple things online, but I didn't really like look into it. But I just know there's like beef between Dore and TYT right now, right?
Yeah.
Okay, it started with Matei, right? Matei, they were calling out Matei for being like a Russian or whatever, and then Jimmy got into it, and then I think Anna brought up his what's up to beer. Anna brought up, something Jimmy did in the past, and then Jimmy brought up the fact that he apologized, and then he was like, "You think that's bad about what happened in the past?" He was like, "Oh, well, we'll go into TYT's like 2007 year to show you how awful it became," and then it erupted into this like big thing.
I used to watch it like on a regular, and so I remember a lot of this stuff. I like literally remember like watching it while it was happening. And so for those who don't remember, and my shout outs to our familiar friends who have just come into the room. We got Tapir Sweet and Sour, which I've been talking to Tapir on Twitter. Seems like really good genuine person. And so it's a lot of things that I feel like it's going to be fun to have some of Tapir's input and comments in the section. I see we got signs saying a nice 62-degree evening in Oregon, and we got Kelly saying hello to the rest of the panel. But I mean, for those who don't know, let's give a little recap. TYT went through numerous segments where they would all be somewhat sex related. One of the main ones was like body. It was mostly, and the weird part about it, which a lot of people don't understand, is it was Anna's segment. Oh, we got a special guest in the building. Special guest, my brother Steve Poikinen. So glad to have you. How you doing, Steve?
I'm doing okay. How are y'all? It's good to see you. Good to be back.
Perfect timing too. We were just about to get into the title of the different subjects going into. Oh yeah, and while we're at it, talking on it, Steve, why don't you give the people a little bit of TYT and their history and what this whole beef is about, because it goes deeper than Aaron Matei and them fucking up stories on Syria. It goes deeper than Fiorella and all these other people talking all this nonsense. This goes all the way basically back to a personality fight between Jimmy Dore and the TYT network. And in my opinion, a lot of jealousy at the fact that he has had success away from them. And so it just escalated over time. And now that they decided to really start kind of shooting a little dirty, Anna sent like some almost like threatening DMs about like she was going to release some evidence on him. And so he basically did almost like an Eminem diss, flipped it, and then aired all their damn dirty laundry and the shit that which they couldn't scrub. Because like I'm pretty sure Steve remembers back in the day, a lot of that content that was coming out from TYT. Which,
when Saint ran for office, they were still, they scrubbed out a lot of it too. When Saint ran for
So
yeah, go on ahead, Steve. I kind of laid it out for everybody, but that's the gist of it. So tell your side of it and what you noticed during that time period.
Well, I mean, going back to like 2005 when I first became aware of who Cenk Uygur was, through an absolute hell site called the Daily Kos. You could tell right off the bat, or I could tell right off the bat, a number of things. One, this was a like quasi libertarian grifter, and he had that Randian super douchebag kind of libertarianism, that particular flavor, the Ayn Rand sort. It's I think objectivism is the flavor of libertarian, that is. Um, but he had that going on. He was trying to push like Democrat progressive-ish talking points, but then anytime you would engage with the guy or he would engage in a conversation with anyone, it would devolve into an absolute shit show. He himself said that he wanted to emulate Howard Stern, that
Yep.
he wanted the show to be like progressive, internet Howard Stern, but talking focused around both politics and then whatever the TMZ bullshit was, dude. They literally fucking put up pictures of women's exposed vaginas, like no consent, nothing. I mean, that's an actual crime in California. California passed revenge porn laws a while back, probably the first state to do it. And TYT's out there doing it to get clicks, that's in their members only section, right? That's behind a paywall. So not only are they doing something that's illegal in the state of California, they're charging you money to access it. But I think that man, this thing is like blown up a lot, and it's in my opinion supposed to be a shit show. It's people that clearly hate each other. TYT has been tanking. They need something to drum up a new audience. They tried to Me Too Jimmy Dore. What Jimmy Dore did was shitty, inexcusable. He apparently apologized for it the next day. She's bringing it back up to try to get him to lose his audience, and he's going at her like he has dehumanized her for years. Everybody's a shitbird in this one. There's degrees of it, and TYT is arguably, light years more, I don't know, more shitty for sure. But I mean, God, dude, there's so much going on right now.
Yeah.
And people are trying to figure out whether or not saying nice news skirt is the sum total of the moment. When you're right, Marcus, there's a lot of history involved in this. There's a lot that TYT did and pushed that would be considered completely out of pocket right now. And I believe that, Rose Twitter and the reactionary part of the progressives who already didn't like TYT are having a field day with this, because it allows them a little bit of justification and a little bit of, dopamine. Getting some likes and some retweets and some love out of their joining the chorus on Cenk and Anna are scumbags. Well,
did you hear what Daniel Lupker from Hard Lens was saying? He made the analogy. TYT is kind of like that big whale that's kind of floating, at the top. It's dead, it's corroded, and all the smaller fish are trying to eat off of it right now. I mean, everybody's their little takes on it. I feel kind of like we have to, only because of how big they are. But like you were just saying, there's so many stories. Like, I have in here the whole Juneteenth holiday, which we're going to get into that later on, We got the whole Biden versus Russia versus China versus North Korea and Iran and so on and so forth. You got Israel and Gaza going at it again.
Yeah.
You got.
Did you see the sewage cannon?
Oh yes, yes. For those who don't know what he's talking about, they literally have water cannons, which they have made some kind of chemical toxin. It smells horrible that they literally spray on the people. So instead of
They were spraying it on the Al Aqsa Mosque. This
Yeah.
is like the third most holy site in Islam, and they're spraying it with shit water. And they wonder why rockets fall on their neighborhoods.
Well, I mean, now it's what the fire balloons, and I mean, it's a fucking fire balloon. You can't put out a fire. I mean, that if anything, that should show how weak they are as a resistance. That's the kind of weapons that they have to be able to fight back against such a strong power. That obviously that should show anybody that it like what you hear a lot of times with the younger Israelis, especially. It's complicated. You guys can't understand. It's not complicated. I mean, what happened to the natives in this country wasn't complicated either. Yes, did some of them shoot back? Did some of them have some arrows? And did some of them kill some of the early settlers? Yes, but it was still a genocide. I mean, it still was lopsided in the way that was going on. And you had Naftali Bennett, who gets in there, which a lot of people don't realize is how I see it. It's almost like when not Netanyahu, but when Saddam went out of power. Yes, a lot of people thought Saddam was shitty and horrible, but when Saddam goes out of power, what's next? It's worse, which comes after him. And that's kind of this situation. Naftali Bennett is worse. And they have their flag parade, which they march through the streets saying death to Arabs. And then the next day, they're spraying down the mosque. And then, okay, now it's 2 days, now fire balloons. Now they're saying, oh, well, see, we gotta defend ourselves. I mean, let's bring the guys in there. What do you think about it, Chris? What's your thoughts?
No, I'm just listening. You know, it's a lot of shit to take in. It's hard to pick a place to start because it's all like just one deep bag of shit, right? It's difficult to pick a spot. I guess if I pick one, going to, I didn't even know what the hell a sewage cannon was. I was just over here trying to look it up to see what the hell that is. But unfortunately, you know, I'm 30 something years old. It's sad to say, like, what else is new regarding, the Israeli treatment of the Palestinians, even at Al-Aqsa, you know, as Steve said, like, we already know the importance and the significance of that particular location. The fact that you're doing that, it's, you know, you're shitting all over the place. Like, you know, something heavy-handed something heavy-handed has to happen on the other side. But, you know, when that happens, that's going to be a major shift. So I don't know if that ever will happen, but, you know, at some point if you're losing, you know. But, can we go into that domestic terrorism thing?
I wanted to give my point before. I wanted to give my point before you went.
Yeah,
my bad.
We do need to go into the domestic terrorism issue.
Yeah, because we'll get into that with the Biden versus everybody right now. But going ahead, Emmanuel.
No, I was going to say in regards to
Happy Juneteenth. I forgot.
Yeah, it's today's Juneteenth. In regards to what happened with with Bennett being put into power, you saw the propaganda. Everybody was saying, well, Bennett's power is spread out. He doesn't have as much power as Netanyahu. You know, we can see a real sense of peace, right? He's going to bring peace, right? And then Bennett just came in and just fucked it all. Just came in and just started just fucking shit up again. And everybody was surprised. I was like, were you really that surprised? Were you really that surprised that this dude who was significantly worse than Netanyahu came in and then just start stirring shit up again? So I'm like Chris, you know, you're old enough to notice the shit start happening and you're not surprised. So
Well, the difference, which a lot of people don't understand about this Naftali Bennett, why he's worse, is because Naftali Bennett, the argument has always been, the secret argument within Israel has been, do we kind of push them out or do we force them out? That's the only argument. The agreement, the consensus has been the Palestinians need to go. That's consensus. Now, Netanyahu's been like, okay, I'm willing to use force, but it's kind of like Grand Theft Auto. Most of y'all who played it, you have that certain heat level. It keeps rising and rising and rising, and it's like Netanyahu is good at recognizing when that heat level gets up there and kind of calms it back down. But Naftali Bennett and these guys, they don't have a consciousness or understanding of how flagrant their actions are. And they honestly feel like, well, we can just do this shit. And, oh, well, Americans will be pissed off for a while, but you know what? Nothing's going to happen. Nothing's going to come about. Because they've watched Netanyahu from the outside be able to do a lot of this stuff. They think that they could just go right in and do it exactly the same way or push. Because, you know, people always feel like, oh, well, Netanyahu wasn't going as hard as we really should go. Not realizing Netanyahu was pushing every boundary he could. And then he know when to start reeling it back a little bit. I see we got Shadow Band in, Josh, Mariana. Welcome everybody. Stand with Commander X, stand with Julian Assange, stand with Magnus Panvidia. I know I'm gonna screw that up. Panvidia. Sorry. But yes, definitely stand with those stand with Magnus. And we over here we definitely stand with Julian Assange. I mean, you don't even have to ask that question to Steve. It's almost dumb if you don't know how he feels about Julian Assange.
Oh, he knows. He knows. As far as Bennett is concerned, have you guys heard of the Sayeret Matkal? It's
I have remind me.
It's the Delta Force of the IDF.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Okay. They have now Bennett marks the third Israeli prime minister to come out of that division. Bennett was responsible for a massacre at a refugee camp and shrugged it off. No big deal. No big deal. Defied orders. Didn't listen to command. Went and got himself in a position where he had to call in an airstrike. And the airstrike hit a refugee camp. Because he said that, you know, that's where Hezbollah was. So it's another situation where if the English word and the Arabic word is school, in Hebrew that translates to Hamas hideout. And then if it's, you know, hospital in English and in Arabic, in Hebrew it's Hamas hideout. Yeah, Hamas base. It really doesn't matter. Everywhere is a Hamas or Hezbollah base. Both Bennett is, he billed himself as further to the right than Netanyahu. He billed himself as more of a hardliner, and this is the guy that the U.S. is now going, hey, we can work with him now that Trump's friend's out of there. Boy, that got a little awkward, didn't it?
I mean, yeah. The funny thing about it, another thing,
he was, was it?
A little history he was bringing up. He literally still talks about it like to this day, like, yes, I've killed many Arabs. And he says it like it's no big deal, like somebody killed mosquitoes. That's how he talks about killing Arabs.
Cutting the grass, right?
Yeah, it's like the snake population here in the Everglades, right? Every so often they tell everybody, oh, it's hunting season, you could go out and kill as many as you can find. And he brags about that. You know, that's essentially what he does. He brags about how many he's killed or so. I mean, again, it's not much different. I mean, they all hardline. Look, their ideology is to erase them people. The only issue is they just can't do it by the push of a button. So they have to do it strategically. So they starve them, they feed them, they poison them, they blow some up, they shoot some in the leg. You know, I'm sure whatever medicines they give them come with all kind of extra side effects. I mean, you take people's houses, you crush their spirit. So they're like, it's a full-on attack on these people. The fact that they're still standing is is testament to, I guess, human spirit, right? That we all have when pushed. But at some points, either they're going to be erased from the place, or there's going to be some kind of major shift that causes them to at least pause what they're doing.
Well, for the first time in really ever, this last round of war crimes by the state of Israel, they got negative press attention. Never got that before. There were people on every major network presenting the Palestinians' case. That is new. So maybe, but then you gotta wonder if the finally allowing positive coverage on the Palestinian cause is just a distraction so they can hit us with like, oh look, aliens, now it's a one world government.
Well, I do believe that the one world government stuff is right around the corner.
I'm mostly kidding.
Mostly
about them aliens at any point.
I know but it's some jokes, there's some truth in there, because I do believe when they start to do these major shifts like that, there is going to be some kind of major distraction for us. Normally, we go back to examples like Wag the Dog. They love to use war as a good way to distract for when they're going to do some major things. Because they feel like, well, it's a wartime. People are less likely to be, resistant to things. I mean, looking back to World War II, when most of the men went away, the women shifted right into gear, working in the factories, and so that was something which was new all of a sudden. So they'll have ways of switching things up, and a lot of people don't realize they could have kept a certain amount of men back to work and sent some over to war, but they intentionally wanted a certain amount of men to go away to get women into the workforce. Now you have two incomes. There's a plan to some of the stuff which goes on. I'm not saying necessarily that every single war or anything is planned, but they find these opportunities to subvert in the changes which they want to make. That's what I'm saying. Let's see. What was I see a couple other people wanted to recognize. I see Gamer for Life in Thomas, Oklahoma. Zen Shadowban Refugee. Oh yeah, and Mona asked where L is. We will get L is taking a break from the show tonight. You know me, I say some stuff sometimes, and I kind of rub some feelings on my co-host. So we're gonna go into that. It's all concerning with Juneteenth, and I'll let you guys read the tweet, which I did, which kind of ruffled some feathers and got in some nerves, and I'll explain in depth more what I was trying to say and try to clean it up, clarify it, and hopefully you guys won't think I'm the most worst, horrible person in the world. So I figure we'll go into that a little bit later on, but Chris, didn't you say you had what topic did you want to get into next?
Well, I mean, there was a couple, but then the Juneteenth thing popped into my head when I saw it there in the corner of my screen.
I figured let's get most of this Biden stuff.
Wait, you want to do Biden? You want to do Biden? You want to do Biden in Russia, or you want to do Biden in Juneteenth, or you want to do Biden in domestic terrorism? Which?
Oh, that's right. I forgot Biden is tied into all of it. Shit.
I mean, which one? You gotta clarify.
Let's go ahead and talk about the most important one right now. The one which is going to have the most impactful situation going on. That will be the Putin-Russia thing. I feel like that situation, if you've been monitoring it, like I definitely have, and I know some of you out there have been following, Putin his tone has been getting a little bit more aggressive and a lot more what's the word? I'd say a lot less fearful of consequences from the United States. And you look at it like this: if you've been sanctioning the hell out of somebody over and over and over, damn near the whole time they've been present, after a while the sanctions don't ring the same anymore. And if you look at the business deals which they've been doing with other nations like China and Iran and stuff like that, they're using workarounds to get around some of these crippling sanctions. So they're starting to find their way to get away from having to deal or be under the thumb of the United States. But at the same time, you do have that same kind of aggression which they're putting out towards Russia. They're putting it out towards China, and you have these two superpowers which are starting to get closer and closer to each other. Now, war professionals have always said, yes, if we had to fight Russia, we'd have no problem. We can wipe them out. If we had to fight China, it would be difficult. But we could handle them overall. Now you got to look at the situation of China and Russia and some of these other. My volume's kind of low. Let me get a little closer. I guess my tablet is a little different. Or I could just talk a little louder. I can definitely project my voice, but anyway, with all of these situations going on, and with Biden being deeper and deeper into a lot of these Middle East conflicts, these countries know who they're dealing with as far as negotiations. So they know they're not going to have somebody who's going to be looking in their best interests. They're going to have somebody who's going to be perfectly fine with doing the bidding of the corporate America. Whatever mineral resources they want to go in and take, if they want to take oil, if they want to do this. So these other nations know that they're dealing with a president now who's perfectly fine with the Western companies coming in and basically implementing their fascist agendas. They also know that they have a president who's perfectly fine with military coups because he was definitely back in Venezuela. We already know about what happened in Bolivia. We know about what's going on with their support behind Alexei Navalny and various other situations which are constantly always going on. So I would like, to hand this out to the rest of the panel. What do you guys think about the implications of this speech, what they say, and what are the expectations from the Biden administration? I guess let me toss it to Emmanuel first. What do you think, Emmanuel?
Well, I thought them playing up the stupid old man thing with Biden was a pretty neat trick that they were doing. I thought that was pretty cool when they were, having discussions with Putin, and Putin was basically, he's real. You're right. His tone is definitely getting more aggressive. He's really not. He really doesn't really seem to show really that much caution or real concern. But the doddering old man thing, where he continuously made like mistakes and screwed up every last thing, and then you notice a significant push about, of course, like Russiagate and how previous people who brought it up were apparently right about everything. It just seems more like a distraction. So it seemed like it was harder to focus on the issues at hand, which is of course what they were trying to do. So it's easy to lose the eye on the ball. So that was really what my take was from it.
Okay, cool. Sure. What do you think, Steve?
I mean, the new Cold War has been activated already, and any posturing, any genuine threats that Putin comes up with are only going to be met with similar threats, similar posturing, similar force. This is about maintaining a perpetual state of war. Putin knows, just like parts of Joe Biden know, that Joe Biden's not the president. Everybody in the room knows that. So Biden's going to play up, if it is playing up, if they've managed to if the cocktail of awake drugs that they shoot him up with to get him out in front of a teleprompter for a half an hour to barely deliver somebody else's words, if that isn't working and he's going off book, oh no. But Putin can jump on that and he can embarrass the hell out of what is clearly a man in serious mental decline. Honestly, if this was anyone else, if this was our family member, a few things would happen. We'd be taking the keys. You would not be allowed to watch the kids. We would be expecting a phone call at any moment going, yeah, hi, we found him naked in the freezer aisle again. Could you come pick him up? Yeah, I mean, and this is supposed to be the president. He can go out and he can deliver a hell of a talk about cyber terrorism and the need to ramp up the national security apparatus around cyber crime. Wow. Rounding up everyone remotely connected to Julian Assange or WikiLeaks information activism. The 2020 to 2022 counterterrorism strategy lists hacktivists, leaktivists, and public disclosure outlets on par with ISIS, Al-Qaeda, Hezbollah, and any and other terrorist organization.
Yeah, your thoughts are.
Look, so that's important, and it goes to show that that little what do I want to call it? That photo op that took place January 6th. That is still being used as a reason to push forward with this domestic terrorist shit. But what's funny is that while the image is given of white Trump supporters running up in the Capitol as the reason for this new legislation, right, or new policy, shall we say. The only people it will be enforced on are not going to be those white Trump supporters, right? It's going to be every hacktivist group, every group that's full of people like you and me, unless you're the official Black Lives Matter, then you got to pass, right? Because, you just happen to know, homie, whatever. But, I mean, any non-connected resistance group, I guess for lack of a better term, they will be tagged with that shit. So everyone's got to be very careful going forward.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree with that, and going on which the point which Steve started bringing up about the hacktivists and activists and them, like we've heard it before on the Sunday shows. They're already talking about that. Oh well, the way that they were approaching terrorists and terrorist cells online overseas, they need to implement those same kind of techniques and tactics here domestically. That we're the problem, and so they've already started kind of leaking out the fact that they're going to start going after people who I consider truth tellers for the most part, people like us, and they're throwing the feint early to kind of test it out to see how people responded. And I feel like since many people didn't respond to a lot of those stories, it'll be something which they'll do, here and there. Like for instance, remember when that person had law enforcement show up at their door from comments that they said about AOC, even though they weren't life threatening or invoking any kind of violence. That pressure or that ability to intimidate is going to be some of those methods, and it's going to escalate more and more. Could you elaborate a little bit more, Steve? Because I know Steve knows exactly what I'm talking about and can kind of help you guys get a bigger picture on why this is such a big deal.
So real quick, when you said throw a feint, it made me smile because in another tab right now I have the Anderson Silva Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. fight up. But So,
what's going on there though, real quick? I mean, since you touched on it.
surprisingly, it's the 8th round and both of them are standing. Anderson Silva's been throwing some massive blows. I'm getting a gnarly echo.
No, I hear it.
Okay. But I have a feeling based on what I've seen back and forth, switching around and coming back over here, that if it goes to a decision, then Silva will come out on top. I've seen him land a lot, and that dude throws hard, but Chavez Jr. is no fucking slouch. But I mean, it was just no guard whatsoever. Mugging out in the first 3 rounds, and it got lit up a little bit. Came back to it. But the reason that Magnus Panvidia was mentioned in the chat by Shadowban is because his house was raided by the FBI today. Magnus, it got kind of his name out there a little bit more because Jimmy Dore put him on. He's the Boogaloo boy that is now on a magazine cover is a domestic terrorist. I was at the Capitol on January 6th. I was there because we knew it was going to be wild and we wanted to document that shit for journalistic purposes. That's all NSA. And we were already in town. We were there for Julian Assange related events, and the Force the Vote stuff was happening at the same time. So we were cross promoting in order to try and get more people out to both events. And then we leave the Ellipse right after Trump's speech. Had to go back up to the Airbnb for a little bit. Got a bunch of phone calls and messages. Hey, you need to get back down there. Shit's popping off. So went and watched a real-time psyop unfold before our eyes. And we knew in the moment that everybody that was involved was either set dressing, being used, or a federal agent. And now we know Enrique Tarrio fed, most of the Oath Keepers fed, more of the Proud Boys leadership fed. They're all feds. And when your government is starting right-wing militias in order to overthrow the government, while all of the sudden on the left there are, you know, the people who also need to put on costumes to go fight the people who came to the party in costumes. So now Antifa is or will be declared a domestic terrorist organization. We've got anti-protest, anti-riot bills either passed or on the calendar in 34 states. 34. Freedom of assembly is going away rapidly. And all it's going to take for in any of these states where there's an anti-protest or anti-riot bill for every protester involved to get locked up is someone showing up in all black with his face covered, throwing a water bottle at a cop. Everyone's going to jail. Everyone is branded federally as a domestic terrorist. With this national counterterrorism strategy report that came out, that has got a lot of people going, wait a minute, we're all domestic terrorists now. Basically, because the report doesn't say only white supremacist organizations. It doesn't say only Antifa. I'll bring it up here. I gotta, which here it is. Let's go wandering. But I mean, this affects every single real human being that would step foot onto American soil. It's that invasive. It's that pervasive. This is just ridiculous in terms of its scope, in terms of who is and who is not considered to be. Go ahead.
Oh no, I was just adding and vagueness.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't really specify who gets on the list and for what. It's just a wide catch-all to throw a bunch of people on a list, depending on whoever's deciding to add you to that list. It doesn't really give any kind of purviews on how it's going to be used, which is more terrifying because that means they can use it however the hell they want to.
I'm trying to find the graphic that a number of people were tweeting out because it breaks it down really, really easily.
They passed. I'll read this comment from Thomas real quick. They passed Juneteenth to act woke, but behind the scenes, the states and feds are passing anti-protests, getting ready to take our rights to assemble away. Exactly. Give you one thing and take away a whole lot more at the same time.
Okay, here we go. Let me pull up the share screen here real quick. Wow, that's big. There we go. So these are the categories of domestic violence extremists.
Chris,
pardon?
Go on ahead. Get share screen. Bring it up.
Oh, I thought it did. Could have sworn it did.
It's up now, Steve.
Cool. So, domestic violent extremists are U.S.-based actors who conduct or threaten activities that are dangerous to human life in violation of the criminal laws of the United States or any state appearing to be intended to intimidate or coerce the civilian population and influence the policy of a government by intimidation or coercion or affect the conduct of a government by mass destruction, assassination, or kidnapping. As per the definition of Go Fuck Yourself, Code 2, blah, blah. Mere advocacy of a political or social positions, political activism, use of strong rhetoric, or generalized philosophic embrace of violent tactics may not constitute violent extremism. That's bullshit. And may be constitutionally protected. Also bullshit. We have pre-crime in the Department of Justice now, to the tune of pre-crime divisions in each state at $77 million a year, bare minimum. While a majority of DVEs fall into one threat category, some draw upon or are inspired by ideological themes found in other threat categories. This goes across the political spectrum. Some of this is outside of politics altogether, where your only interaction with a politician would be protesting in front of a government building to talk about your cause. This is everyone. DVEs, domestic violent extremists with ideological agendas derived from anti-government or anti-authority sentiment, including opposition to perceived economic, social, or racial hierarchies or perceived government overreach, negligence, or illegitimacy. Gentlemen, that's everybody.
Yep.
I said that the other day. That's pretty much everybody. That's like literally like everybody I know. And even then I was even in discussion with the article that there's a contradiction. I think below. I think it's like the second paragraph and then the paragraph to the right of it that it's vague. There's such broad strokes. You're talking about everybody. And
well, yeah. If you look at the category, it throws out the so-called animals' right extremist groups. That's one of the first that it talks about. So, and then it brings up anti-government. So, if you're protesting against, it doesn't matter, governor, politician, whatever different party, you're put on that list. If you're a religious person and you're trying to, protest your religious freedoms, you're on that list. I mean, who is not on that list? I mean, or who could not be factored in and put into that list? They said violence, but think of how often, like Steve said earlier, one person throws a water bottle, now they just deem you all as a violent group attacking the police. Well, actually not attacking, assaulting the police, which is a crime, which is a felony. And that's how they'll get a lot of people. I mean, I remember seeing this in boot camp. You'll have one RDC or recruit division commander get up in your face, one of the smallest ones, yell in your face, insult you, call you all kind of racist names, whatever, to get you mad enough to want to physically hurt them. The moment you get ready to do it, 5 of them come over and start stomping you out. That's the goal here. To get one of you to react. Now they lock everybody up, throw everybody on the list, and say you could have been there, just like Steve was during the Capitol, was there in a reporter capacity, in a journalist capacity, and you know what? They'll say, "Hey, well, Steve Poikonen, he was there. How do we know he's not one of the terrorists?" That's just how easy they do it. And then if we go back to was the Keystone Pipeline protesters and a lot of the protesters who were protesting down at the border, they were literally taking people's license plate numbers and taking down your information to put you on a list. And this was known that law enforcement was doing that. Chris, I saw you wanted to say something. What do you want to say?
No, it's just a continuation of what we saw from, '01 with the Patriot Act. You know what I'm saying? As we've progressed and technology has, all right, gamer, peace out. As technology has progressed over time and improved, they just found different ways to implement it. We're looking at, like, what do they want? Total information awareness, right? They want to know everything all the time. Probably for some purposes, they just want to sell you some shit because you're a silly consumer, right? Some of them. Other people are, that's what I wanted to say. On a positive note, 50, oh, wow, okay. 50 riot police officers in Portland resigned after one of them got indicted. All right, that's good. Bon voyage, bitches. Now we're gonna see the new generation can now see what the definition of useful idiot is, right? Because politically speaking, depends on who's in power, right? So right now, Black Lives Matter, if they hold some kind of rally, as long as it's not too crazy, the Democrats most likely won't send the feds in too heavy-handed, right? At least at first, as long as they don't get too crazy. Now, when the Republicans come in and they decide to, activate, they will be terrorists and they will be treated very harshly. Because, it's funny. Under Trump, they think they got treated so harsh while they was out in the street. I think it was bad. Don't get me wrong. There was, the cops shooting people in the face, but they could have just been way worse. You know what I'm saying? We see the footage from the 60s and the 70s. They could have been way worse with better weapons today. So I hope people understand there's room for it to get way worse than what we see now.
So you're absolutely right, dude. It's
Marcus, you muted.
Oh, I see now. Never mind.
Oh, go ahead, man.
Oh, no. Go on ahead. I was just going to ask. I was going to ask anybody else had anything to add to that.
No, I mean, I think everybody kind of capped it right there. So the thing that we need to do is realize that this does affect every single one of us, that we have more in common than we do different. And we don't get to argue about politics or policy or what a party is or how government works until we actually have the government that we were either promised or the one that we want next, because this shit is unsustainable. This can't, the sinner's gone. The sinner's gone, and everybody, there's a very, 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 very small group of people over here who control everything, and there's a very large group over here who has fuck all. Then that imbalance is going to create the kind of hostility and tension that results in a lot of lives being lost. And I would rather organize to prevent that. I would rather establish mutual aid networks and try and get people, if possible, out of major metropolitan areas. Because what what the West has planned, what China has planned, what Russia has planned is all of us in mega cities, smart cities, with our lives hooked up to the Internet of Things, which is here and rolling out. The 5G is just paving the way for 6G. I don't have any conspiratorial thoughts about 5G. I don't. I have a lot of information about what that kind of radiation does. I know how much raw material it's going to take in order to power the Internet of Things. The destruction to the planet alone is enough to want to pull back from the concept of the IoT, but that's what powers the fourth industrial revolution. That's what powers the Great Reset. That's what powers the total technological takeover of what we have become familiar with as human existence. And I would like to try to stop that.
Yeah, definitely.
Completely
Hey,
agree.
so you wanted to add something?
No, I can't remember what I was I can't remember what I was going to say for it. Can't remember what I was going to say for a second. I'm just a lot of people really have fallen asleep on the fact that Biden rolled out this policy, and they were so shocked, and I was like, I'm sorry, are you talking about Mr. Crime Bill, Mr. Patriot Act? Were you really surprised that he was going to do this? I mean, it shouldn't have really surprised you. And then when they did that whole front news piece about if you see someone doing un-American activities, give the police a call, call them out, right? I'm like, when that started happening, I was like, okay, you got smart, you got wise enough to know when is the new policy, when are you going to see the new policy on, like, what do you do about those people? See, he already had done it. He had already put it in the paper like AOC. So watching the rules was just a short hop, skip, and a jump away. That was really all I needed to say about that. That didn't surprise me, not even in the least. So
the best way is not, you're gonna just have to build, like he said, mutual aid networks, but they're not gonna be able to run on a national, like, you're not gonna just be fucking around from California to New York, right? You just can't. They're going to interrupt so much of what the people try to do. So the best thing you can do is in your neighborhood, try to start building those places where you live. Some people don't have to relocate, but people's thinking gonna have to change on that. So, like I always say, the issue is so many people lacking imagination. Just imagine something else different and working towards that. That's not crazy, you know what I'm saying? But for a lot of people, it is.
Well, that's the reason why I feel like we're going down this pathway that we've been going. The elites only have a certain amount of solutions in their head. And the problem is they're not willing to listen to anybody else. And so, like I tell people all the time, I'm religious. I'm a person of faith, and they don't have to be. But even like people of faith believe that, yes, we're getting close to the end. But if you look at even from a non-biblical, a non-religious factor, look at what we have going on with climate change. Look at what we have with the resources that are being stripped out of the ground. The with the fracking, what that's doing to the water. We look at what's happening with the bees. We look at how many extinctions are going on throughout different, so many different species. We are running ourselves out of time, regardless of whether you want to look at it in a biblical way where something's happened, or if you just look at what science is literally telling us. I mean, we have certain regions where people are being forced out of living in those regions because of how climate is changing, how it's disrupting quality of life in those certain areas. There was a Native American tribe which lived in, I believe, the Mississippi, Louisiana area, where they completely had to be uprooted. Tens of thousands of people because their land is going to be completely washed away in the next couple of years. The same thing which is going on when I lived in Florida. I remember when I would go and look out at the coastline, and that was something that people always talk about. When I would look at older pictures, you would see from, say, you know, where it looked at that time now to where it looked 30, 40, 50 years before. And you could see the erosion. I mean, how it's just ripped away. And it's, you don't have to have a PhD in understanding this stuff to literally see the signs that are going on around us. I mean, we have more droughts that are going on. We have we have more violent areas where it didn't happen before. We have hurricanes and thunderstorms and tornadoes that keep getting stronger and stronger and stronger. I mean, if those things are not signs that we're obviously walking towards some point where there's a point of no return. And then jumping back to something that Steve said earlier, we've talked about this on the show numerous times about the pre-crime. He just broke it down to you guys, telling you that there's funding in every state already doing it. I've been telling you to watch out for it, and now these things which we've been talking about for months and months and months ahead of time, all of these things are starting to manifest themselves. And it's up for you to believe. I mean, it's up to you guys to take in what are you going to do with this information, and how are you going to try to avoid whatever crazy shit that's coming down the pipe. I can't say that we necessarily have the answers to how to prevent this stuff or get around it. I'm just trying to be, I'm just trying to be that warning bell to let you guys know what we see that's going on. Anybody like to add any thoughts on that? All right. If not, then I guess we'll go on ahead and get into Juneteenth. For those who are not familiar with Juneteenth, I'll give a short, brief history.
Nobody's familiar with Juneteenth.
Everybody's familiar. Okay, good.
I think we're all kind of caught up on. Yeah.
Okay, generals had to go around and enforce it. Okay.
Juneteenth is the day that Joe Biden saved us from slavery, right? That's what Juneteenth is.
That's how they're literally peddling it. That's how they're literally peddling it. Right, they're peddling that on news. That he's literally doing.
I'm saying
Joe Biden walked out like the CIA agent in Black Panther saved the day.
I'm telling you,
exactly what happened.
That is going to be actual history taught in the schools. I have no.
Somebody better meme that shit though. That's funny.
Yes, if you haven't, I know some of those smart memers are out there. Please put that meme out. But going into it, let's go into some of my feelings on Juneteenth first. Then I'll go into my comments, which I said online, and then I'll let everybody I'll let everybody say what they feel about what I said or not. I noticed Mona heard what I said and automatically assumed that whatever I said was automatically horrible. I'll let you all be the decider of it, and I'll lay out some of my thoughts and feelings as to why I said what I said. Okay, let me pull it up real quick. Let's see, where was it?
What'd you do, Marcus, man? What'd you do, kid? You pissed somebody off?
Now, just to clarify, this was in response to something that Frederick said about Juneteenth, correct?
Yes, I want to clarify.
Okay. All right, we're clarifying.
I did add a little onto it. I'm not going to run from what I said, but I'll go ahead and put it out there. Frederick said, only a misguided individual would think that Black American community is completely free. Ending slavery was one thing. Dismantling an oppressive and unjust system is another. The war continues until the walls of Jericho come tumbling down. Hopefully I'll hear the shofar soon. But hashtag Juneteenth, and then he added me and Chris, of course. This was my response. What I said, powerful words from the brother Frederick. Forget token holidays, hashtag Juneteenth 2021. This was a concession to avoid doing anything of substance for the ADOS community. Hell, it's a holiday that everyone will get off. Many communities are oppressed, but three stand out to me: Black, Latino, and Native Americans. And that's what I said. And if you
I remember that. I remember that tweet. What was the okay, go ahead.
I'm getting you there. It's a little bit more. I said that because if you look statistically across the board, these people are in the worst straits as a community. Of course, you can find extremely wealthy blacks, Latinos, and natives, and just like you can find extremely poor, white people or Asians or anything. That's not the point. I'm talking overall in generalities, not every single person. I said we focus on blacks, Latinos, indigenous were enslaved also. I said we focus on blacks, Latinos, and indigenous were enslaved also. One of my great grandmothers on my mom's side fled slavery pregnant with a slave master's baby and her kids to the reservation. If you're white on Juneteenth 2021, even if we're cool, I don't want to really be around you that day. And the reason, that's what I said, which got people offended. And you got to understand.
I can bounce.
No, you're not going nowhere. Stay your ass there.
Emmanuel's cracking me up, dude. Fucking cracking me up.
I wanted to clarify in saying that that's kind of a more vague towards, I don't want to be around any random white person that I don't know. But if we have a relationship and we build something and we're on that level, then yes, because for me and my family, before Juneteenth was all the raise and buzz that it is, my family has celebrated it for decades. I mean, I've celebrated Juneteenth for over 30 years myself. So for us, it's always been more of a sacred personal thing. And when people don't understand the full totality of the history and understand the somber nature and the sadness of it, and are just going to look at it as a day off to cook some barbecues and have beers, that's not the kind of people which I would want around me, because they don't understand the trauma that the community is still suffering. You got to understand, as Black, Latino, Native American, and I reference all three because I am all three, the people who have been their biggest oppressors over the past 400 or 500 years, let's be honest, we all know who it is. Now, we're not going to say that every single person of the Caucasian race needs to be attacked and or anything. And I wasn't even saying that in that statement. I'm saying it's a personal thing where when I think about Juneteenth, it brings pain to me. My grandparents, they were kids during Greenville, Tulsa, Oklahoma. Their parents lived through it and watched it and witnessed it. We had to hear those stories growing up. I had to hear the stories about the Trail of Tears and all the rape and murder which went on. I had to hear about Puerto Rico being free for 17 days and then it being stolen away. I had to watch, after that, the Jim Crow laws that went in. My mom going through segregation. Myself being called a nigger more times than I can ever even count. Me having white friends who were doing well tell me, say, you don't even realize how racist your bosses are. Some of those very ones you go out to lunch with. And so if we haven't built that relationship where we're cool like that, and I trust you to that degree, then I don't know that you're understanding the pain that I'm going through and that my community is going through on that day. I referenced it to somebody and I was saying, it's almost like if Jewish people are having a holiday and you say, well, that's fucked up that some of them don't want to be around Germans. It's not that all German people are bad, but you got to understand, they're going to kind of feel a little weird on a day like that. And that's what I don't think most people, I mean, now I was going to bring up Irish versus the British, but, Irish people seem to have let some shit roll off their back and not as offended anymore. But you go back, actually, you don't even have to go back that far, because I remember definitely in the 90s, the IRA still was not fucking cool with the British. And that's what you guys have to start to understand. Yes, we can all come together on issues. Yes, we can all work and build together and get over the wounds. But you got to realize a lot of these things are still fresh in our community. I have white people who literally tell me today, you're not oppressed. You don't go through this. I'm like, You don't know what the fuck I go through. You don't have a clue what I go through. And then for those who say, hey, but I'm not racist and none of my friends are racist and none of these friends, and I never see any of this, you have to remember something. Let's take, for instance, let's say a third of white people are racist. 33%. Do you know that 33% of white people that we will say is racist, and let's say 66% are not, that 33% is still more than the whole entire African American community. That means that even if you're not racist towards a black person, and none of your family and friends are, almost every single black person you meet is still going through racism from another white person. And so even though you might sit there and have a cool relationship and get through, some of the most touching, amazing moments with this one white friend, right after that, you're gonna hear nigger this, that from 5 more that happen right after that. So you gotta understand how that's hard to balance and try to gauge when you have, and not only that, just have a negative viewpoint towards you, that you can see right now with the whole, you have a handful of Asian people get attacked, millions of dollars in a heartbeat to try to address and deal with that problem. George Floyd gets killed on camera slowly in front of us all, and most of us are still to the point where we weren't even certain that Derek Chauvin was going to get convicted. I mean, you got to realize the difference in what's going on between the communities and how people are feeling. It's not necessarily about one, and part of it is over time, as more people understand and understand, it's not just about Greensville. There's Rosewood. There's what happened in Detroit and Philadelphia. I mean, I could go on to at least 20 other Greenville, Tulsa, Oklahomas that most people don't even have a clue about. Most people don't have a clue about during slavery that they literally cut babies out of women's stomach and fed them to alligators so that they could get the alligator to make leather. There's so much that people don't understand about that animosity. And the thing about it is, myself personally, I feel like the only thing for the most part the black community wants to hear is we're sorry. And a good and majority of the white population won't even do that, refuse to even go to that level. Like I talk with Steve about some of the different race issues. So Steve is definitely a person where I believe he understands where I'm coming from, how I feel about some of these things, and hopefully he doesn't take anything I'm saying negatively or that it's against him in any kind of way. But you guys got to understand that even for the good that many of my white friends out there do, there are another 10 white guys behind you which are fucking it up for the good ones out there. There are so many people who, I mean, don't even take our plight or that we're even going through anything different. I mean, I ask people if there is no kind of oppression going on for Blacks, Latinos, and Native Americans, then the only thing you can say is that those 3 groups of people are somehow naturally inferior, and that's why they're at the bottom. That's the argument you have to give me, that either they're all just inferior people or there is some kind of systemic racism which is going on to keep them at the bottom. And if I know that this is going on to continuously keep me at the bottom, am I crazy for still having some paranoia that maybe some of these white people out there that I don't know, like Steve, or that I haven't sat down with, like L, or I look back at a John Brown, an abolitionist, unless I can see your actions and you've shown me who you are, am I strange for being skeptical until I know that you're all right? Another thing, I decided that I was going to bring up a quick Bible verse for you all to read, and this explains. I told Chris I won't go too in depth. I'm not going to turn into the pastor tonight, but it is one that I wanted to read in particular. This is from the book of Ecclesiastes. It's Ecclesiastes 7:7. It says, "Surely oppression maketh a wise man mad." And that's what it is. I'm a history major. I have studied my ancestors' history back for thousands of years. If you've seen what I've seen over the thousands of years and understood it, I don't know how you could look at it and not have anger. But in the second part of it, and a gift destroyeth the heart. So I'll read that again. Ecclesiastes 7:7. "Surely oppression make a wise man mad, and a gift destroyeth the heart." The reason why I wanted to bring that up to you is because you can go through all the oppression over and over and over. But what it's saying is, be wary of that little gift that somebody gives you to make you forget about that oppression that's went on. I don't forget about the oppression which has went on with my people. That's why I push harder for us to be more knowledgeable about these things so we can fight against them. I don't have any hatred against any man because, like the Bible tells me, and I live by it, it says, "Be peaceable with all men." And I always try to do that. So that's my thoughts on it. That's the comment. I want to extend an apology to Elle because she felt kind of hurt by that. That is not my intentions. It's not my goal to go around pissing in people's Kool-Aid. But there is a internal trauma that our community still has, and this government has never tried to rectify. I mean, we literally gave out for many years reparations to Israel for what happened in Germany. You can pay people in another country for shit that you didn't even do, but you can't even take care of the people who you harmed in this country. And we're supposed to just ignore it all and forget, and everything's cool. And we got a holiday, so kumbaya. And I just can't do that. I'm sorry. All right, that's enough, guys. I can get off my soapbox, and Steve, what do you think about what I said? Am I wrong? Am I a little bit? I don't know. Correct me. Get me straight if I'm wrong.
I believe that you are an angry black man, and I am massively intimidated, and I'm reaching for my phone slowly, and I'm about to call the authorities. Look, man, there's such a thing as generational trauma. There's such a thing as inherited trauma. I don't know what it's like to have the inherited trauma that you do. I can empathize with it. I can stand next to you. I can fight, like, not for you, but with you. You know, I can understand trauma. I can understand being profiled. Like, there's a lot of overlap that I think a significant amount of people really do have with the black community. I think that the manufactured confusion and the constant division that we're pushed on, it drives a lot of this bullshit. I think that we've been prevented from having conversations with each other for our entire fucking lives, unless by stroke of place of birth or accident of where you go to school or who your parents are. You don't really get to have those conversations growing up. So not until you're an adult do most people, and on both sides of this, ever have the opportunity to have a genuine, meaningful conversation with somebody of another race. Like, that's how fucked up this shit is. It certainly was like a lot more like that when I was growing up. It's harder and harder to do that every day now, Mostly because of them goddamn Mexicans, know what I mean? But come on, I'm fucking with you. But you know what I mean, though. It's harder and harder to have a completely segregated society now, unless you're generationally wealthy and can be afford to live in a gated community or some shit like that. But that's going away. If you've seen any of the news lately, it's everyone's going to rent. Nobody's going to be a homeowner anymore. We could talk about that another time if you wanted to. Go off on that all day.
Oh yeah.
Where you're coming from, where what your point of view is 100% legitimate and valid. You're allowed to pick your friends any day. You're allowed to not be subjected to somebody's virtue signaling bullshit any day. But if you're specifically celebrating a holiday that is 100% your community's, dude, the last thing you want is a bunch of other people walking in and making it a fucking Cinco de Mayo. Like, I'd be pissed as fuck about that. You know, and to have the way that this rolled out, and like the Biden administration somehow extra cured racism, because the first time that happened is when Obama got elected. But then racism magically came back when Orange Man got elected. But now racism's fixed again because Juneteenth is a federal holiday. Everybody here feels better about that, right?
Yeah, but you remember, that's right. I'm sorry, because Obama was our reparations, remember?
They gave reparations to Japanese internment camp family members.
For 6 years in turn, or maybe 10 years, I think. And so you can find reparations for people who intern 10 years, which I feel bad for that. I do. But you can't do reparations for people who went through over 400 years of slavery, who literally built this whole fucking country. And then the land was stolen. And so the people who make all the rules, who mostly throw everybody in jail, are the ones who started all the raping and robbing. And then afterwards set up rules to throw everybody else in jail.
Yeah, that's a colonial colonizing mindset, and it's identical to what's happening in Gaza. It's that shit.
It's exactly the same. Well, and that's the reason why, and somebody they were almost about to make me like, I'm like, let me just ignore this person who's feuding with me on Twitter, because they start going into the whole Irish and thing, and I'm like, that situation is so complicated. For one, Irish were not slaves. Irish were indentured servants. Yes, was it true that some of them got treated like shit? Yes, of course. But did they get paid? Yes, they did get paid. Were there ways which they could get out of that indentured servitude faster? Yes. Were there ways where they can get put in indentured servitude longer? Yes, there was also. For instance, if you were an indentured servant and you got a woman pregnant, that can add time onto your indentured servitude. A lot of people don't know that. Also, if you decided that you wanted to go be a slave catcher, that can cut time off of your servitude. That's not known. But a lot of people focus on Irish were slaves. For one, they weren't slaves. They were indentured servants. For two, believe it or not, that was actually half and half. Some of them were white, some of them were black. That's something a lot of people don't factor it in. And then for three, Irish were also there were a lot of wealthy Irish also who were plantation owners. When you get down into the Caribbean, like for instance, one of our favorite basketball players, Chris knows him, Patrick Ewing. Ewing, what kind of name is that? That's an Irish name. There's plenty. Gilchrist. That's an Irish name. You know how many black people I know named Gilchrist? Get names, and there's so many that I can go through. All you gotta do is look at the names of different black people in this country, and you can tell who enslaved them. I mean, if you see somebody with a Latin last name, or a Portuguese last name, or a French last name, or an Irish, I mean, on my grandmother's side, ours was McElwee. What kind of name is McElwee? That's Scottish. So don't play this whole, oh, we were indentured servants. Well, how long? When did indentured servitude end? A lot of people don't know that. It wasn't something that continued on for hundreds and hundreds of years. So yes, you could have started off as an indentured servant, and then by the end, a couple generations down, your family owned slaves. Now, to clarify this even more so, because the whole slavery thing can get complicated, not every white person had slaves. In fact, a lot of them didn't. And you know what? I know this is going to be a harsh pill to swallow, and a certain community doesn't like when you bring up this stuff, but I'm actually doing a video on this on my other channel, so it's coming out anyway. Percentage wise, it was more common for Jewish people to own slaves than their non-Jewish white counterparts. It was also more common that they ran a lot of the auctions. It was also known fact that if there was a Jewish holiday, the plantation or the slave selling would have to be scheduled for another day because of lack of sellers and lack of buyers. We've always been taught in history that the white man, the white man, the white man. And then somehow one community says, hey, well, when it comes to the white people on that, hey, we're not white. It's only these other white people, not us. No, everybody, every one of the European nations, all Europeans had a part in it. Now, did some have bigger stakes? Yes. Did some families have nothing to do with it? Yes. But I'm perfectly fine with talking about the situations. I mean, here's another thing. Did Native Americans enslave some blacks? Yes. Did some blacks enslave some Native Americans? Yes. There's so many levels to what went on. I mean, and so for anybody who wants to try to throw I was Irish and the indentured servant, no, don't play that game with me. Don't do it.
I will say this about the mix. Like, traditionally, as a country, even before statehood and all that shit, the basically at some point in Europe, everybody's been a slave. The Irish more than others, their slavery goes about like 600 years before discovering America. There's evidence that in the mid 1600s, like a few 10,000 Irish prisoners were sold as slaves, not indentured servants, but I can't say with 100% certainty that that's a fact.
It's a fact. There were some.
But I mean, it's a disingenuous argument when it's coming from the point of we're on par because this happened in America. The history of the Irish in America is not one overwhelmed with slavery. It's definitely not. That would account for like maybe a percentage point, maybe a partial percentage point. And at that point, I mean, not that it be, I mean, it's basically mass human trafficking anyway, but I guarantee you that more Eastern Europeans or Asians come through in shipping containers now.
Oh yeah.
And indigenous women, and the more rare your species is now, the more exotic you are, the more likely you are to be a victim of trafficking. And that's just how that works. That's
exactly
so gross.
Especially if you're the more impoverished the country, the more likelihood of you being put into human trafficking. Like
by having some benevolent NGO come through called like Save the Children or the Haiti Children's Relief Fund, or just pulling a name out of my ass that totally doesn't exist and didn't happen.
When I was in Jacksonville, Florida, we had so many surprisingly young women of Russian descent who were all over Jacksonville. And they were all terrified to leave their man. Which we know what was going on. I mean, after the fall, which a lot of people don't realize, after the fall of the USSR, when that fell, it completely destroyed that nation or nations as a whole. I mean, there were some women who were willingly wanting to be prostitutes because that was the only job that paid. Now, there were a whole lot of women who didn't want to be, who were forced into it. And that's what we're talking about. I mean, we go into countries like Eritrea, where a lot of human trafficking has went on there. And then now it's gotten to the point where it's not bad enough just going around the world and picking from the third world countries. Now they've come back stateside and just start picking up girls randomly, you know, and mostly you'll see them wind up at a truck stop. I mean, it's just gotten to the point where the powers that be have just gotten so corrupt that where it used to be, what was the phrase, honor amongst thieves, I feel like all that honor, everything has fell away. There's no kind of lines to, okay, we won't do this. There's no cutoff to what any of these people will do at this point. Perfect comment to go with what I was saying. Sign says, I did like that Americans were the most worthy and therefore most expensive purchase on Hostel. Seemed fitting. Well, that's how it'd be in real life. It's the same way, say a hostage situation. If they got an American hostage is more valuable. It's because they know that our country protects us to a degree, and so we were deemed more valuable because you can try to ask for more from Americans back. That's all that really goes to, because Americans are deemed to be more wealthy. So I mean, it's the same thing which happens in Mexico with the kidnapping. Chris, Manuel, you guys wanted go ahead and add?
Yeah, Marcus, was that the whole story? I just want to be clear before I give my opinion.
Yeah, that was the whole story.
Okay. You are entirely justified to have your anger. What did they say? If you're not angry and living in America, you're not paying attention. If you're not angry and black and living in America, you're not paying attention. I was trying to figure out exactly what you did that warranted the whole conversation, because your anger was entirely justified. I'm like, I live in Georgia. I live under the concept of MLK, and I up until like this year didn't even know anything about the Poor People's Campaign. It wasn't in any book. It wasn't in any of the. Yeah, I mean, I didn't know anything about it.
That's what I'm talking about, Emmanuel. That's more stuff.
Right. I understand. So I understand your anger. I understand your anger. I get it.
And like I was like when I talked to some of my Hebrew Israelite brothers, or some of you guys know I'm a Hebrew Israelite. They start jumping and yelling at people, and you know this, and you guys do this, and it's like, no, they're Americans. Americans don't know jack shit about history. Most of them don't even, they forgot. I mean, even the elites, the fucked up ones who have done most of the fucked up shit, don't remember the fucked up shit that they've done to even be able to teach it to anybody. I mean,
did you see that recently?
They've done.
Wait, did you see that recent statistic?
They don't remember.
Did you see that recent statistic that that 9% of like I think they said like 9% of like high school seniors don't know slavery was the reason for the Civil War? They don't know that. So they're slowly trying to wipe out that concept. There were a lot of white people on, talking about Juneteenth and Biden and everything, and they were like, oh, they gave you a holiday, but they're not gonna fix anything that's wrong with y'all. They're not gonna give you money. They're not gonna acknowledge the pain and the suffering and the generational trauma. There were white people actually saying that. They were like, it felt exactly like Tulsa. He walked in, he did his little song. Biden walked in, he did a little song and dance, but he didn't fix anything. He changed nothing. So you got people getting mad, getting angry, being mad, getting angry, walking away, and then you still got people not getting it, not understanding it. And what's even worse is that you were seeing other black people getting mad that you that you did not feel good about what happened with Biden, like, or what happened with the networks and the corporations. Like, at least they acknowledged it. At least they said something. I'm like, no, that's not enough, because everybody had been saying it for like hundreds of years. So when you were explaining the story, I'm like, okay, he was 100% justified in being angry, and how you handled it and shit like that. I'm just like, everybody's, it's just, you feel almost all the time like you don't get mad. Like you get to get thrown out crumbs, and you get thrown out crumbs and get thrown a little ignorant information, and you're supposed to be happy. And then, you figure it out and you tell the truth and you say, man, no, this pisses me off, or man, no, that's not enough, or man, no, how come they can give help and support and stuff like that to them, but we don't get anything? So I get it, man. I do. So when you were explaining it to me, I'm like, well, who's getting mad at you? What? I'm confused. I was like, my brain was starting to hurt. I was like, even Frederick was mad. Frederick was justified in being mad. He was like, they're not going to do. I was on the phone with him the other day after he did that. He was like, they're not going to do anything for us. He's going to walk. They're going to walk in. They're going to make it a federal holiday. They're going to give us, so you can give your little barbecue, and there won't be any mail delivered, but they're not going to do anything substantive to change anything. They're not going to do anything to really acknowledge the pain and the suffering that Black people went through, or even explain the actual foundation of Juneteenth. There are still people who really don't understand what Juneteenth was.
Well, remember, they can't now. Remember, Manuel, they can't now. The critical race theory stuff is not allowed in a lot of schools, so they can't even teach.
Yep.
Why? What the purpose of Juneteenth is for?
Yep, that's exactly right. I remember seeing that video on the critical race theory, and I think it was like Mark Lamont Hill was trying to explain to like a younger Black person exactly the concept of exactly that concept, and he was not getting it. And I was like, you'd be surprised how many other people out there are like that. So you could see Mark getting, and I have problems with Mark Lamont Hill, and I could understand his anger. I could understand his frustration. I'm like, yo, I'm trying to educate you on this theory, and you're not getting it. And I'm like, you are seeing that gap widen, not just with white people, but with other black people as well, that say, oh, Biden did this, I'm good. Or we got a holiday, I'm good. Or, he acknowledged Tulsa after 100 years, I'm good. I'm like, no, that doesn't work for like a lot of people. So I get it, Marcus.
I brought Kelly's comment up because I saw that her and Mariano were having a discussion, and so I wanted to educate on that topic. It says it's because most of the textbooks follow Texas.
That's
and Mariano put, Texas school board who chose the textbooks backwards as fucks. Well, there's more to it than just picking behind Texas. What actually happened is, well, shit, Emmanuel, I think you got an echo.
Okay.
What actually happened with the schools is there was a group called the Daughters of the Confederacy. For those who are not familiar with the Daughters of the Confederacy, they actually went around to all the school boards, and they made sure if you put stuff in there regarding the Civil War and history about the South, that it had to be put in a favorable light to the South. And so that's the reason why you start having terms like the War of Northern Aggression. That's when you started having most of the monuments, the statues, all these Confederate monuments thrown up during that time period. They're the ones who actually pushed to get Birth of a Nation shown in the White House. They're the ones who pushed to get the Confederate statue in Arlington Cemetery. I mean, they're the ones who pushed a lot of this stuff because their mindset was that as their patriots died off, they wanted people to remember them in a positive light. So they wanted to put out as much of their propaganda into the school books and get as many statues up as possible, so that can be the last push on the whole, on the whole Confederate ideology. I mean, a lot of those statues, which people don't realize, a big chunk were put up. Well, a small percentage were put up directly after the war. The next major chunk which were put up was in the 19 teens into the 1930s, when a lot of those Tulsa and all those things were happening. That's when a big chunk of them were put up. The next big chunk which were put up during the 50s, 60s, and 70s, when we had another big rise in racial tensions with the Civil Rights Act and all the civil rights leaders. So it was a reason why they were doing it. They were seeing that people were speaking out about things, and so to push back against people speaking about the injustices, they wanted to throw their propaganda into the books to counteract that. And it's been very successful for many decades.
Marcus, did you hear the story about the I don't know if you've ever heard this story. The story about the guy that lived in the city in the South, and basically essentially the Confederates won the war. You know, he grew up in the city and they basically the Confederates won the war. And then he went to college and he sat in a class and he was like, "Oh shit, we lost the war? What the fuck?"
Well, like, did you know that there were still slaves? There was like some people which the generals didn't get all the way to, where they found that there were still people, black people in slavery in like 1950s and 1960s, that they were still holding them as slaves. I mean, that was mind-boggling to me to find out. In America, there were still people in chattel slavery who still are part of the transatlantic slave trade. Now, eventually those people found out. Those people who were holding them got thrown into prison for that. But it was going on. I mean, it's kind of wild theory. Chris, I already talked to you earlier about it behind the scenes, because, you know, if I'm going off, or if I'm going a little bit too far, I like my friends, you know, to be able to, you know, kind of reel me back in and say, "Hey, man, you're a little wrong. You're a little too harsh. Man, you probably shouldn't have said that. Maybe you should have worded that a little bit better." Chris, who I talked to earlier about it, what's some of your thoughts, you know, hearing it all laid out and then hearing some of the comments?
One, you know, like I always say, people are too damn sensitive, right? You know, everything pisses everybody off. So at the end of the day, some people just have to get over it. The line about white folk was a little harsh? Yeah, maybe a little bit harsh. But again, do I think that you mean that for all white people? Obviously not. I mean, that's just ignorant to say that. So I don't think it was that serious. Two, stop being so sensitive. Three, if you don't like what I say, just keep it scrolling. That's what the app is for, right? You can scroll past my comment and keep it moving. You can find something else that makes you laugh. Go look at roses, dogs, cats, I don't know, whatever your fancy is, right? So that's my take on that. You know, the Juneteenth thing with Biden, you know, that's just some more trickery to keep black people voting Democrat, because it's breaking down on the political lines nicely, and it lines up on the network news real good at the end of the night, right? Because here you have Democrats, and now you have like their diverse pictures, right? The AOC, Jamal Bowman, you know, Ilhan Omar. So you have the whole fucking rainbow of people, right? For representation. So look, they're trying to do something for black people, and here go the all-white Republicans who are against Juneteenth and against critical race theory. So it's just more division, more bullshit, more nonsense. You know what I'm saying? That's no disrespect to obviously your family, you know, or anybody's family that actually lived through some shit. But if we keeping it a buck, like, the shit is all political fuckery just to keep you at each other. I would just wish people would be able to see that shit like a car accident almost, right? Look at it. Oh, there's an accident, but just keep your eyes on the road and keep it pushing. But it's so hard for people not to be like, oh, accident. What happened? Like, just pay attention to the road. You know, so that's pretty much my thoughts on that. Like, stop being so sensitive.
Yeah, I mean, I just wanted to lay it out there and ask everybody because I know where I come from. And here's the thing, which people don't understand. When I say I come from a biblical foundation, one of the things which it tells me to do, actually, which I've been kind of careful on and doing very lightly, is it literally says that I'm supposed to speak out about injustice. Supposed to. Now, what people don't realize is the only way people can try to come out of those things, and you know, I guess I'll just go ahead and say it more clearly. Nations are judged as wholes, and the only way you're able to help clarify and fix things of what your nation has done is to know what your nation has done and to be able to say, okay, yeah, we were wrong. You got to say that apology. It's kind of like if I never tell you what you did to me, you can't fix it. If I'm able to explain that, now we're able to hash some shit out and talk, and now things are able to get smooth over. But if you, it's kind of like if you're married, if you cheated on your wife and she knows, y'all can't just walk around and act like the shit didn't happen. You can't like beat your wife and then you come back in and try to act like, hey babe, give her a hug and a kiss, and let's just ignore the fact that I just slapped the shit out of you and kicked you around last night. Let's just never ever talk about it. And that's kind of what
Marcus, you breaking up. Do you guys hear that distortion too?
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah, let me get a little bit closer. Is that any better?
You kind of like in and out. You know, you got a little like feedback a little bit. It seemed like.
Yeah, it was reset, not volume.
Well, tell me if this isn't clear. I'll just try to make this one point real quick. It's the same as an abusive relationship. If the abusive one beat up on the other person and they never wanted to address it, a lot of times I wouldn't advise you sticking around in a domestic relationship. But in the case in point of America, I'm sorry, it is an abusive relationship, especially from the government and most of the indigenous people. And now it's gotten to the point of they say, you know what, we've perfected doing that to the blacks. We've perfected doing that to the Latinos. We perfected doing that to the Asians. Now let's extend that onto the poor whites also. That's kind of what they've done in a sense, is after they've worked out a way of trauma, now they've kind of spread the trauma around to use, that against us as a whole. And most of us are just saying, dude, just say sorry. The government just say sorry. You get what I'm saying?
I thought you were going to use that Malcolm X quote.
I was going to say, like, yo, they don't need to say sorry. Just cut a check. You know what I'm saying? Like, keep it sorry. Just cut the check.
But I was going to say, but think about it. Our government is never apologized. Government has never apologized for it, ever. As a people, they've never sat down and said, we did X, we did this, we did this, we did this, we did this.
I guess I'm cold. I guess I'm cold because I don't expect the dude who robs me on the street, pistol whips me, should come back and apologize to me. Like, he really should be fearful that I don't catch him, right? So I'm
trying not to, but that's what I'm saying. If we can get to that apology and talk or whatever, it doesn't get to that point. And so I'm trying to avoid that point. Because I know that a lot of innocent people get hurt and if it goes that way. Now, do I feel sorry for the jackasses who perpetrated it and who have some of those same feelings and are like, well, our ancestors had to do what they had to do, so
But you know what, Marcus? Sorry to cut you off, though. This is why I hate when these things come up, because it sucks up so much oxygen in the room that you have to talk about stupid shit like a Juneteenth, and it's meaning you have to go back into it, then everyone gets sensitive, etc., etc. But if we look at the overall agenda of what these motherfuckers have planned, like it's your skin color is not going to matter, right? They like they came for all of us with COVID. They showed it didn't matter. Obviously they tried to make us first by all the propaganda around us, but that shit spreads all over the place. I mean, just like even let's look at crack, right? Crack came into our neighborhoods, etc., etc. Fast forward in the white neighborhoods now, man, you can't not find any pills or even heroin or fentanyl at this point. So at some point, all the that they end up doing is expanded to everybody. So whenever these racial things come up, it's annoying to me at this point because there's racist people. Most of them not going to be around me. You know what I'm saying? The ones who really, really, truly want to cause harm, like they're in a different part of the country and they would never. I don't have to worry about them. Let me just say that. The ones coming for all of us, you know what I'm saying? They don't care. They don't care if I'm black or Steve White or you Hispanic or he's Hindu. It doesn't matter. So I just think a lot of it is just bullshit meant to keep people into their Democrat, Republican, go into that booth and vote and legit make the system seem like it's still legitimate when we know it's not.
Yeah, that's fair. That is fucking solid.
Yeah, I've always kind of looked at it in this, and I guess I'll go ahead and explain this since we're already on the subject. I've always looked at it this way: is that yes, there's always been. So I can't remember who I was talking to, but they said they hate to call them elite. I can't think of a better term. I mean, nothing better. So we'll stick with the elite for right now. The elite are those people who perpetrated those things. They're the ones who got the slavery going. They're the ones who did all of these things. And those elites, their children are the same people who were sitting up there at the top who are, putting this misery out to everybody as a whole. Now, when I say white man or randomly how I put it, Chris and most of my friends, they know I don't mean it that way. When I'm talking about the white man, I'm talking about that one at the elite. Like when I talked about the slavery with the Jewish people, I wasn't talking about every Jewish person, but I'm talking about the elite. We have to be able to name who at the top is doing what. And we can't be, so scared to mention, this isn't Harry Potter, the one that can't be named. You name who the problem is. And then that way you're able to allow whatever, let's say white people or Jewish people to say, you know what? Hey, these people in my group, they are the fucking problem. They're the reason why people hate all white people because, these handful of white people at the top are pushing these things. These handful of white people at the top are not allowing these programs to go through that can help. These are the ones who are trying to censor everybody. And I feel like if you have more people on our level that are calling out the elites on who's doing what, it gets a little bit further. But to clarify, when I'm talking about when I'm saying white people like that, I'm talking about the elites. I am not talking about you at your 9-to-5 job. You are not running a damn thing. You got as much power as I do. You're not the ones I'm worried about. If you run a company, yes, you specifically. If you're running a multi-billion-dollar company, I'm talking to you. You are exactly who I'm talking about, and the people you consort with are exactly who I'm talking about. So hopefully that was clarified. Hopefully we all can get past that. And like I said, I really didn't want to spend a whole lot of time talking about this issue, but I don't want people to misunderstand me and take me the wrong way. Am I angry black guy? You damn fucking right I am. and I embrace it, and I have good cause for it. But I don't want people to think that I'm lumping all people in to the crimes of a few at the top. I'm not. I might have lazily colloquial threw a term out there, but the people who know me, they know what that means. They know it's not talking about every single damn white person. What a lot of people don't realize is during those Juneteenths I was celebrating, one of my aunts was white. Her whole family disowned her. That aunt was the aunt that was at every single one of the functions. I talked to Steve about this. So Steve's heard this story, and this is before the Juneteenth that we were talking about this. But she was there at every single thing I did, and she wasn't like, oh well, she can kind of look. No, she was as pale as white as you can get. I mean, where she couldn't stay outside more than 15 minutes because she started turning beet red. But she was there at every one of my football games, every one of my performances, whether it was music or acting or whatever it was, football, basketball, wrestling, it didn't matter. Martial arts, she was there for every one of those things. And for what, 30 plus years, her family completely disowned her. Not until she was on her deathbed that they finally kind of started coming around and realized, oh crap, we've wasted 30 plus years of not being in our daughter's life because we're racist. My cousin who's a little older than me, I grew up as a teenager with him married to a white woman, and he got divorced from her, but he's married to a white woman now. Another bomb, which people might not guess, my first wife of 7 years was white. And I still was saying and speaking the same way. She understood because she used to be like, white people are fucking horrible. She used to say that. That was her quote, white people are horrible. So try not to think that it's just I'm some closeted racist who is wanting to round up every white person and attack them for whatever their ancestors did, whether their ancestors did it or didn't do it. I mean, some people's ancestors, some people who I am friends with, yes, they do come from slave master background. They know that. And they'll tell you that if they could, they would kill their own ancestor. And I'm like, well, but how would you be alive? But never mind. That's a whole nother discussion. But I mean, I know that every person who's of a different hue is not an enemy. So I just want that clarify 1,000%. But for those elites, would I hesitate to put some heads in some guillotines? No, I wouldn't. If that situation arose, I'm not saying I'm rounding up rich people and that's happening. So don't come after me, NSA. I know you motherfuckers are listening. But I'm just saying you won't see a tear from me if anything happens to most of these assholes who I see are polluting, destroying this nation, extincting the animals, fucking up the water and the air for all of us. Hell, even if, this is the one thing I don't understand about the elites. You live on this planet too. What are you doing? Maybe that's why all of them are trying to find out how to go to fucking space, because their goal is to destroy this fucking place and leave us all here. I don't know, but it fucking looks like it. Any comments, fellas? Oh, wait a minute. I got a lot of comments in here. I guess we should try to read some of these comments.
They were all they're working on merging themselves with machines, so they may not need the usual things to sustain life that we need. Shit, look at the transhumanist agenda. Look at the vaccines. All of it comes together. So, whatever they have planned for the future doesn't necessarily depend on having clean air or clean water in every single place. And plus but they're not stupid. They've bought not all, but here in America, for instance, like T. Boone Pickens, before he died, he owned a shit ton of aquifers, right? Gates is the largest owner of land in the country, right? Or farmlands, right? They're not that dumb, but they don't. They're not gonna. It reminds me of like Back to the Future. Since I saw your shirt, there was like remember at the end of the first one when he came back for Marty, and Marty's like, "Yo, you got to back up, cause because we got to hit 88 miles per hour." And he says, "Roads? Where we going? We don't need roads." And he takes off. It's just kind of like that same shit right there. Clean air. We don't need it.
It kind of reminds me of Elysium. You remember that movie? It looks like we're going to like an Elysium kind of future. I wanted to put that comment up, which Kelly said. This is where all this division comes in. If all the have-nots banded together, we could take down the haves. The powers that be don't want that. That is.
Hold on, Marcus. Let me get at that real quick. Marcus, I agree with that, but if you look, this is where I make fun of the left, right? If you don't say the right word, you don't use the right pronoun, you don't use you don't signal properly. Like that's why there's no. That's why that can't happen, especially from the left side. There's too many things that will turn people off. Just look at the information we talk about. Turns off half of them. They wouldn't be able they would not be able to like come to our house, so to speak. So the have-nots, they just gotta figure out like how to be less sensitive about bullshit.
And stick to one objective. I mean, this is one thing which before I got to the mindset that I am now, back when I used to think, you know what, we have a way through, the political, there's a way, we can find a way through electoral politics. When I used to think like that, I realized that's never ever going to go, and we're never going to be able to put these masses together. That's the whole point of keeping everybody divided. I mean, the older populations, they make sure that, oh, well, we'll be careful with your Social Security, while they nut check the rest of us below it. And then they leave this little bit of division. Some of them, they might get certain tax write-offs and be cool in certain areas, but in certain other tokens, they're kind of left out in the cold. And so they play these little games. We'll give you a little bit more, and so you'll be upset, but you won't go out and protest. You will go out and protest, and you're going to lose your job. And so now they start breaking us. Divide. I feel like now it's more divided on an economical basis. But that's about it. Go. You have. Can you hear me? Shoot, I can't hear you at all, Chris. You're muted.
No, my bad. No, I was saying we're at like we're a little over 2 hours. Wanna?
Yeah, I figure we can get right back up.
Oh, you know what? I did want to ask Steve, because I seen the name online, and I know the main reason he's here is to discuss this. So I guess the last thing we could get into is Commander X, if he's still there.
Yeah, no, I had a second.
No, you good. So I was just asking, could you just explain who Commander X is, what's going on there? That'd be helpful.
Absolutely. Oh, I got it. Okay, rad. First, I'm gonna crack this little cartridge of Napalm OG. About 11 o'clock tonight. To Indica.
Nice.
God damn it. So, Commander X. Oh, could you mute up, please?
Yeah. My bad.
Take all good. Commander X is a hacktivist and an advocate for the downtrodden in general, because he himself is downtrodden in general. He gained notoriety for the first time in 2010 when a publicly announced, when he took like credit for a publicly announced DDoS attack, a direct disruption of service attack, on a Saturday afternoon on the Santa Cruz city website. It was just to send kind of a message to the city of Santa Cruz about the way that they'd been treating the homeless. They passed a no camping law that basically essentially criminalized being homeless. The X and a number of other people, including an attorney who ended up doing some jail time over his participation in this, staged a 30 or 40-day sleep in at the state or the city building, and people just camped out in front of the main city building for like a month. They announced this. X at that point was not Commander X yet. That sort of rolled out after this moment. But the hack happened. He had some charges. He was about to get some more charges, so he did what started his pretty legendary career of on-the-run hacktivism, as a participant in a number of high-profile anonymous hacks. According to him, I can't prove that. I can't. But, I mean, he is a character, who knows, right? But over the course of almost a decade, X evaded law enforcement. FBI went from Canada to Mexico more or less on foot, crossed the Mexican border on foot, applied for and received refugee status, and started the asylum process, was awarded the asylum status in 2019. If you know who Tefpo is, one of the original organizers of BLM Ferguson before it got co-opted and all fucked up. Tefpo walked away from it in early 2015. Has a lot to say about it. Has a couple of really good projects going on. But Tefpo was, when he found out about this, he was like, holy shit, we're going. Because X personally, but Anonymous in general, was instrumental to the Ferguson uprising. And there's a lot of people in Ferguson, Missouri that have a lot of love for X and Anonymous in general. Turn the internet back on during the Arab Spring. That's one of the things that Anonymous is responsible for. Creating the conditions that brought about the 2014 ceasefire between Israel and Gaza, because over $100 billion of money was lost because Israeli computer systems were down all over the place. So last Friday, a week ago Friday, at his new-ish spot in Mexico, outside of Mexico City, his landlady tells him, dude, I just got visited by two uniformed officials who flashed me U.S. credentials and told me they were looking for you. I told them to kick rocks if they didn't have a warrant. You might want to make some phone calls. So he did. He called the woman who helped set up and organize the Friends of X support committee. X is in very bad health, 57 years old, has been basically, living on the streets up until fairly recently for a long ass time. That does incredible damage to your body. I know. Done been homeless. He's on the phone with a mutual friend of ours who's a human rights attorney in Mexico City, when the two uniformed officers come back in plainclothes while there's a lot of neighborhoods in the Mexican countryside are gated, not because they're wealthy, but because they want a little bit of added protection, usually are a guard or two at the gate. Gate guard is talking to a guy who showed him U.S. Embassy credentials while the now plainclothes officers hop the wall to the neighborhood, break into his house, and kidnap him. The human rights attorney and the woman who helped set up the support committee were lied to repeatedly by Mexican officials, told X was in the country, they could file an injunction on Monday and bring it forward, and they would sort this out. Meanwhile, he's getting renditioned to the Santa Rita jail in Alameda County, one of the more less celebrated but certainly bigger shitholes in the California penal system. So that's where X is right now, in solitary confinement. They let him out for a total of an hour every 48 hours. We are working on a defense funding campaign. I'm going to meet with the attorney that the court appointed for him tomorrow. I've got requests put in at Santa Rita for a video conference and for the ability to interview X as a journalist. We'll see what happens with that. I'd start traveling on Tuesday, and I'll be joining up with the Home Run for Julian tour. Julian Assange's father and brother are in the country advocating on his behalf. I'll be doing the West Coast leg and final stop on July 1st in DC, filming. I'm going to release that as a documentary probably by the end of the summer, mid-fall, depending on how quickly I can get it all cut together. I'll shut the fuck up now for a minute because so you're going to pop in, add to that. I don't know.
No, that was good information. You know, like I said, I hadn't heard of him until I think I saw it on your feed. You put something out there on Twitter the other day. But you know, I didn't get a chance to like really delve into it like that. So it just seems like you know, the government is doing what they normally do, going after people who get too much out of line. What are his charges?
So right now it was just a failure to appear is what they said they got him on. The exact same thing as Julian Assange. Julian Assange had Ecuadorian citizenship. His citizenship and asylum was revoked illegally, and he was trafficked out of the Ecuadorian embassy. Now we've got Commander X, asylee, politically persecuted individual, who has shown his green card and is all of his stuff, you know, on camera before. All of his paperwork he's shown on camera before. This was someone who had every legal right to be in the country. So with no due process, that asylum was revoked. That refugee status was revoked, and he was trafficked to the United States. This is a little bit more than just the U.S. government, you know, like bending a rule or two to do it. This is a blatant violation of international law, again, to get someone who is a digital activist, who's a cyber activist, who has advocated on behalf of and is a friend of Julian Assange's. The Biden administration is going around the planet settling old scores from the Obama years in terms of people who were involved in high-profile cyber attacks, people who are involved in getting leaked information out. This is it feels like endgame shit, to be perfectly honest. And that's what we've got to stand the fuck up for, because this is everybody. All activism, all advocacy, it all hinges on our ability to communicate our message to people who don't already know what the fuck we're advocating for. If they did, they'd be standing with us. And if we can't do that, there's no way for that activism to take place. There's no way for that advocacy to take place. It doesn't matter what the fuck it is. If the state doesn't find it advantageous, if they can't use your activism to suit their agenda, you are not going to be allowed to communicate that. That's everyone.
Well, that's something, Steve, that I'm glad you pointed out. That's why I always felt like the whole Assange thing is so important, which a lot of people don't get. The reason why it's important is because it's overall Assange is a representation of every independent journalist. Granted, he's on a much larger scale, but he represents that if they're able to persecute somebody on that level, then that means it's very easy to do it to people much lower. So what that's saying is if he's being threatened, then that means that if they can run him through the mill like this, what would they do to any of us? And we know we won't have the eyes or the media attention. So more than likely, you get whisked away to some black site and they do whatever to you, and nobody hears from you again. I mean, what was it? I think it was last week or maybe a week before that. Chelsea Manning just got released. Remember all the stuff that she had to go through for the sentence which they put on her. It's not. I mean, it's the most massive, harshest way to enforce whatever so-called penalty they say she did, and this is perfectly in line with 50 years marking, Daniel Ellsberg and the Pentagon Papers. I mean, this government, it's just show that it's just creeped up a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more authoritarian, decade after decade after decade, to the point now where it's like, it's not just going to be, we'll get you for, leaking some information and you pay a fine and you're in jail for a year. No, it's let's try to throw you in jail as long as possible, throw away the key. And like Steve was saying, it's setting up for an end game. And I feel like that end game is, like we talked about the pre-crime earlier. We talked about so many issues. All of these issues are all part of this great reset. I know people focus on it, vaccinations or different other ways, but I mean, with Bill Gates, we just something I was reading about with him earlier about all the farmland that he's buying up, and then not only he's buying up a shitload of farmland, China is buying up shitloads of farmland in Jamaica and a bunch of other places. Japan is expanding its land in Brazil. Why are they doing these things? All of these things are all tied together in a way. It's just a matter of linking them together and figuring out why is this going on now? I mean, I didn't catch that and really think about it until Steve brought this up now about the fact of these are going around settling stores from the Obama administration. I remember these certain individual things that were going on from, say, 2009 to up until what was it, 2015, and especially the second half of Obama's term. A lot of people weren't focusing on how much shit was going on. I mean, and I do remember even covering the Arab Spring and all that stuff, how that was going on. I think that at that time I was doing it on Facebook and just, covering news stories and exposing them and doing a little bit of commentary, not to the point of, on YouTube yet, but it's crazy how, looking back at all of these different things, how they were all kind of steps up to getting us to the point of, going after Assange, going after Commander X, going after the original founders of Black Lives Matter with Ferguson. I mean, I think about even domestically, there were a lot of people who really made the Obama administration look bad and look silly. And if you could eliminate those types of people, whether it's throwing them away in some prison or literally just taking, Xing them out, either way, it's getting to a point of the censorship level almost to like going towards like a Handmaid's Tale type of scenario. I was wondering, Steve, did he have like a GoFundMe account or anything that like we could try, because we'll make sure to try to bring it up on the show, see if we can help get more ears to it and help out in the situation.
We're going to have to figure that out because we started a GoFundMe yesterday. This morning, GoFundMe took it down. So we're gonna have to figure it out, man. I think that we may have to go
Cash
appeal.
App or
Huh?
I might have to go Cash App or something like that.
Well, the Cash App is just as likely to do the exact same thing.
Yeah,
Same with
gonna have to do
PayPal. PayPal will yank your donation if you say we're put in the word Cuba or Palestine or any of that shit. So what we may have to end up doing is appealing to an organization like the Courage Foundation, which has historically was set up but created by Julian Assange, for Chelsea Manning's defense fund. That's why that happened.
So
So here we are again. But I mean, so the X's fundraiser got taken down last week. Another unmasked anon and more like right-leaning blogger called Marty G, his defense fundraiser got taken down. DDoS Secrets, which publishes leaks about the governments and malfeasance, their servers got raided again. Their Twitter account got taken out. Barrett Brown, who was heavily involved with covering from as a journalist, all of the activities that Anonymous was up to back in the day. He just got hit with a new sealed indictment. I guarantee you that that's related to the Obama Biden years. This is and all roads lead to WikiLeaks on this. The only reason that Chelsea Manning and Jeremy Hammond got reincarcerated in Alexandria Detention Center in 2019 was because they were trying to squeeze them over the WikiLeaks grand jury. When the WikiLeaks grand jury got dismissed, that means they thought they had their case. They thought they could get all of the information out of all of the people that they could. But now some of these guys have popped back up, like X, like Barrett. Marty G, again, he's about ready to go to court now over his shit. So anyone who's got an active case or an open case from those days should expect a visit, should expect somebody coming by. With pre-crime now, anything you say on social media can be twisted to this was inciting violence. Now we have a reason to raid your house.
I mean, we've been talking about this for a long time. It's just scary that this shit is actually starting to it's getting to that point where all of it is starting to form what we've been kind of worrying about. And it's even when we felt like, okay, we're getting a little bit of, movement. Man, all it takes is boom, a couple of snaps and boom, they catapulted themselves ahead of where they were before. And I just wonder how long is it before, they do have us all completely wired up, cameras everywhere, and literally you're saying something on your social media at 9 a.m. and then by 9:35 there's cops showing up taking you away. I mean, I wonder how long before it gets to that point.
And if you're referring to the AOC thing there, that was just a reply in a comment thread. That wasn't even the dude who posted the thing.
Mm-hmm.
The reply wasn't even like savage.
That's what I'm saying. How long before it starts getting... Oh, go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, no, he's right. It wasn't the AOC comment that made the law visit that guy from Twitter. He didn't even really say anything. It was like the lightest of, like it wasn't even a light jab. You know what I'm saying? And but of course, it's not so much about what he said. It's more about highlighting the fact that they can send the authorities after you for mundane things such as comments on a social media ad. Berkshire Hathaway has basically bought every available property in the Midwest starting in the 90s Climate change is real and known, says
So
Amen.
let's get into Berkshire Hathaway because Warren Buffett is the third trustee.
Excellent bad, man. You guys need to mute.
Oh shit, my bad.
All good.
Sorry.
Warren Buffett is the third trustee in the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. So not only is Berkshire Hathaway and Warren Buffett buying up that property, but the guy who is partners with the dude who just bought up 3 million acres of farmland in the exact same areas is now part and parcel of that too. It's not just Berkshire Hathaway either. It's every one of these investment firms. BlackRock is capable of buying at 5 to 20% down. BlackRock alone can buy nearly 200,000 homes a year, and they're doing that. It's Bloomberg. Every major publication has been putting out articles that are like, oh yeah, you think renting is bad, try home ownership. Nobody's going to own homes anymore. Meanwhile, Klaus Schwab is telling you you'll own nothing and like it. Everything you use, you'll rent. And we're knocking on the door of that. They don't have to ban meat. They just have to make Bill Gates's impossible meat affordable for us, and then make steak, $175 an ounce, and just price us out of it. They don't have to tell us you're not allowed to freely assemble or travel. Do what now?
No, I'm just laughing. They gonna sell you this impossible meat. It's gonna be impossible for you to get right after you eat that shit.
Right?
Right.
Well, another thing with it also, remember a couple of years back, they were trying to push for that bill where they didn't have to label the meat, what if it was actual meat or if it was synthetic meat. That's another way they can do it by, okay, well, let's just take off the labels of this, and they just have to take whatever the fuck we sell them. And on top of it, I recall part of that bill, they do not have to tell you if it's artificial. That's the whole point of it. So that they can sell that they're fake, fake meat, whatever the hell it is. They say it's soy. They say it's this. I don't trust any of it. Give me actual real fucking beef, or I don't want it.
100% with you on that, man. I am. Where I was headed with that too is they don't have to make it illegal to get a series of experimental drugs or gene therapy or vaccines shot into you. They just have to make it so that private businesses don't allow you in. Or won't let you on the plane, won't let you at the concert. Do you see that Foo Fighters shit where they've legit got a dirty and clean section? Are you fucking kidding me? And I know you guys wanted to rap. I'm sorry, dude. I got off on a little.
No, you're good. Tedros wrote about that not too long ago, and they
He did. Yeah, he did. He wrote an article.
Then it has to be, what was it, FDA certified, and then they came out and they realized, oh shit, none of these are FDA certified. So let's just switch that up. No AstraZeneca now. I was like, so they were saying, even if you are vaccinated, if you have AstraZeneca, you weren't allowed to the concert. I'm like, the fuck? So now,
or the ones they just said it earlier today. I think it was if you're vaccinated, if your vaccine came from China or Russia, you can't come into the country because so you can just see its own bullshit, man. All of it. That's why I was saying it last year.
What about the plane one? The one where if you took like a specific vaccine or whatever, you can't get on the plane because apparently you took the vaccine and it caused like blood clots or something like that, and you could die if you took the flight. So
that was funny. I both went silent.
I know it's but you know that's what it is, man. You know, it's a lot of bullshit and fuckery.
Here, answer that one.
Answer that one.
Trying to make is my mic.
Is one mic.
Okay, cool. It did. It did.
Actually, yeah, I want Steve answer that one because I disagree with Kelly on that one. I think it's not just them following Ted Turner syndrome and just want to have a whole bunch of land. There is a reason why they're doing this. And I'll give it to Steve first. And if he has any theories, because I definitely have mine.
Yeah, it's not about not seeing us dirty peasants so much as it's about control of the food supply, control of the housing supply. The predator class wants, according to their own literature, according to their own braggadocio and business plans, wants a permanent peasant class, a permanent renter class. Flat out telling you, you are owning a home is going to be quaint. You're going to, they want, according to their own documentation, they want us to be in major metropolitan areas that have been converted into smart cities. These have been piloted on the West Coast and the East Coast. Cupertino, California is a smart city. There's a plan to turn New York City into a smart city where everything is connected to the cloud and the grid, and there is 100% surveillance. But you know what? There'll probably be UBI. It'll probably be attached to your social credit score, but Joe Biden did promise you that he was going to get rid of the financial credit score. Why do you think that is? Do you think that it's magically just going to go away and not be replaced by anything at all, even though your social media is now one of the determining factors as to whether or not you get employed? Do you think that's not going to play a part in whether or not you're accepted at a rental? And if you don't up your social credit score, if you don't start towing the line and putting out those good tweets about how you're going to go get the next job and how you're going to triple or quadruple mask, and oh, you really need me to take an anal swab to find out if I've got, okay, I'll bend right over for that. Sure. Anything else you want me to put up there while I'm here? Anything? I'm yours, government.
Yep.
I'm yours.
Quarters. Couple roll of quarters and some construction combs. That's what's coming next.
Right. Wrapped in sandpaper. Just so I know you're there. A little bit shout out over the last 5 years. You really got to make me feel it now, Joey B. Hot, man.
Yeah, it has nothing to do with trying to get away from the plebs or, it's about control. I mean, these people and I'm gonna go back to it and talk about the shit again, even though it got one of my live streams yanked down. Well, I think it's probably just showing the clips. But anyway, in that show Utopia, and whether you go into the UK version or the newer one, it's still the same thing. It's documented that these elites want to drop the population. That's not new. Okay, maybe they are doing some of the stuff to make climate change speed up, to kill off more people. I mean, that's how I see it. They've talked about population control for the longest. They put movies out about population control. They constantly, so they're trying to prep you for everything that's about to happen next. I mean, we watch shows like, Handmaid's Tale, where they're stripping away all your freedoms, where there's a lot more censorship, where they are literally controlling your person more. That's to get you used to it. So when it happens 30 years from now, you're not going to be as resistant to fight because you've already mentally been prepared to kind of And what we all do is we say, oh, well, when that happens, I'm going to be ready for this, and I'm going to have my guns ready, and, you know, I got a fucking couple of nunchucks, and I'm going to go crazy. And you all talk that shit. But what happens is you watch it, and it just creeps up on you. And you're sitting there, and you're watching it, and next thing you know, it's on you. And once you're in the middle of it, it's too late at that point. It's just like when I would hear, like, some of my friends growing up, they see slave movies, and they'd be like, oh, hell no, they wouldn't have done that shit to me. There's no way I would have done that. No, you wouldn't have. When you're overwhelmed, there's not much you're going to be able to do. And that goes for all of us. And what I see is coming down the pike from these crazy, maniacal assholes at the top. They want servitude. And if you go back, for those who don't know, right after slavery, there was a term, it was called muckrakers, I believe. What that's talking about is a permanent underclass. And the muckrakers were black and white. Multiple races. It's about servitude. It's that whole Adam Smith, Birth of a Nation mentality coming to its futuristic, endpoint, natural endpoint. That's all it is. It's capitalism completely running its muck and merging into techno-fascism. Simply put. Would you like to add on that, Steve?
Oh, just real quick, if you ever want to trigger a libertarian, take an Adam Smith quote and put it on a picture of AOC.
I mean, honestly, this
Real
point,
fun and games for later.
who doesn't AOC piss off at this point? I'm wondering, like, how did you get to that level of starting off being so loved by so many? And then
she did exactly what she's supposed to do. She's going to be the shitlib's favorite congresswoman from here on out, man. This is someone who interned for Ted Kennedy, who went to the Columbia's, like, the international relations school she went to is like well-known CIA recruitment spot. This is someone who's been groomed since she was in college in order to be this character. She's an Instagram influencer with a congressional seat. And they're gonna fucking try to get her to be governor of New York before they try to run her for president. If we're even at a spot where something like a president is something more than a quaint idea. But no, dude. Look, I have love for my libertarian friends, but the Ayn Rand ones are a bunch of humorless cunts. And they're, really, I mean, they're Republicans that smoke weed and maybe have a black friend. That's who they are.
I honestly would like make it mandated that every Republican needs to smoke a joint at least, like, we're talking about it has to be like an every other day, because these motherfuckers are way too uptight. And maybe they be like, you know what, man, I got millions. Do I have to keep being a dickhead? Damn, I never thought about that. Fuck. I already got hundreds of millions. I don't have to keep being a dick to my employees.
During that period of election dispute or uncertainty when they hadn't announced yet, my man, shout out to Glory, my wonderful co-host Glory Jones, proclaimed me interim president. I was like, well, shit. If I'm going to be interim president, I need to roll out some executive orders here real quick. First, let me do what any other president would do. Let me pull some friends onto the cabinet and let them run wild with some shit. So my co-vice presidents were my co-hosts, one of my co-hosts on the Free Assange Vigil at the time, Kendra Christian, because when we go do events, she's my grown-up. And I felt like I would want to have my grown-up as my vice president. Seemed to be, but that I also really wanted my vice president to be John McAfee's pirate yacht. So I decided, since I was interim president, I would have co-vice presidents, John McAfee's pirate yacht and Kendra. I'm pretty sure I made Glory Secretary of State. I'm pretty sure I did. I made Nico House not the director of the CIA. I abolished the CIA in an executive order, and I made Nico House a director of a newly created department called the Department of Minding Your Own Damn Business. I drafted 3 additional executive orders as interim president, and the first one was the release of all political prisoners and an abolishment of the prison system in the carceral state. The second was mandatory DMT. DMT was now mandatory. And then the third was that we would begin an immediate and peaceful dissolving of the federal government.
I am with that plan. How do I get on that? How do I get signed up?
And most of that was actually Adam Kokesh's platform when he was running for president as a libertarian candidate in 2020. In fact, I had gotten to know Adam through the Assange activism, and he asked all of us to be delegates for him. So we did. So for the first time in a very long time, I registered for a political party last year for the sole purpose of being a delegate for my friend who was running for president. Because you could do that in parties that aren't, completely rigged. I think of all the political parties, Libertarian is the most openly rigged, just because if you have enough money, you're going to be the nominee, unless you're John McAfee and running your campaign from international waters on your fucking pirate yacht.
See,
Which happened, by the way. That totally happened.
And they even went and got him too. Ain't he locked up as well?
Yeah, he got in Germany, and he's been sitting in jail for about 7-8 months waiting to be extradited on tax shit.
I figure, to add to your cabinet, if you really wanted to just make everybody lose their shit, you make me either Speaker of the House. Woo, you imagine me as the Speaker of the House? Oh boy, it'd be hell to tell the captain. That's all I gotta tell you. You can't put me in no position of authority like that.
That's funny as fuck.
Put me there, or you know what? I would love to be DOD. We're gonna erase a lot of shit. Okay. First thing I'm doing is I'm shutting down bases galore. In fact, after I shut down the bases, I'm gonna convert them into giant nightclubs. All of them. That's what all our bases are going to become. Because we're not going to need to go into everybody else's fucking country and start shit. We're going to come into your country, party. That's it. So that would be my directive if you put me as DOD. Shut down the bases and turn them into giant nightclubs or bars or whatever.
That's legit. Giant indoor sustainable food growing operations. Housing. Yeah.
Well, that would depend on if you put me as defense or housing or another areas. I can play around with some different stuff if I'm Speaker of the House. I can do a whole lot of shit then. We'll have and it would be certain people, part of your your medical script is you need to go do this much MDMA because you are fucking crazy. You're an asshole. So you need to do something, calm the fuck down. You drink too much. You don't drink enough. We need to fix this. There would be that kind of shit going on. But I was wondering, what other projects you got going on right now, Steve? I figure, let the audience know. I see our numbers go up and then they go down and up. But while people are here and it's a good amount of numbers, I want to try to, get that message out right now. What you got going on over there with Slow News Day?
So tomorrow we're having on a woman named Allison Morrow, who was a mainstream media broadcaster in Seattle and was trying to report some accurate information that ran outside of the narrative. Her station told her, "You're fucked. No, you can't do that." And so she now has her own independent channel. Really looking forward to talking to this woman. She's got some incredible insights, and she kind of looks like a Karen, dude, but she's not. Like she's like stealth, right? Like she's a full pass Karen, but fucking come on.
She's like a Lauren Steiner.
Lauren Steiner is a Karen. Lauren Steiner is like a Karen on Karen steroids, covered head to toe in Karen brand Karen wear, with her own goddamn private jet, with her bitch ass Karen self. That's who Lauren Steiner is. I had her on my show once.
Like
it was horrible.
That look, that Karen Steiner kind of look.
Well, she's got blue color, light blue, bright light blue tint glasses, like the frames are. Blonde woman. That maybe more of a Becky. I'm talking shit. I really hope she never sees this. She's fucking awesome.
Kind of sounds more like the funky lady in the mall who's like at one of those booths who's selling random shit. Who, okay, this week she might have blue glasses she wears all week, and the next week she wears the purple glasses all week.
Oh, bro, UGG jeans or UGG boots model, dude, for sure.
There we go. Now it makes sense.
But I mean, absolutely fantastic, and I really appreciate the work that I've seen from her. And I went to go watch her latest live stream, which I'm gonna pull up when we get done here, and probably end up fucking passing out about 5 minutes into it because I'm fucking beat. But the chat pulled up, and it was her saying, where did this go? I will read it off because it's crazy, dude. Crazy. How some serendipity shit works. In her chat, right when I pulled it up, I see, come on, load, motherfucker, Allison Morrow saying, I've covered Assange on my YouTube channel and tried to get other journalists to come on and talk who are actually covering the case in person or on location. Haven't been able to get anybody. And the very first comment under it is, shout out to whoever Paul is. Have you talked to Slow News today? She's going to be on tomorrow morning. So we'll be able to connect on that front too. I am on Tuesday flying to Denver, Colorado. I'll be there for a couple of days, kicking off the West Coast leg of the Home Run for Julian tour. The Denver Press Club is going to be one of the locations of an event, and there's a rally at the State House. Denver Press Club is the oldest press club in the nation, opened in 1860. Kind of just random coincidence and weird that they were, even into having us there. But to have, the father and brother of the most famous political prisoner that we have in terms of, well, no, that's not true. I would say that at least maybe more famous, unfortunately, than Mumia, but Mumia has been an incarcerated journalist for 35 years. So and check this shit out. In Oakland, California, next Saturday, June 26th, at the Islamic Cultural Center in downtown Oakland, the Home Run for Julian event will be Alice Walker, and then a recorded message from Mumi Abu Jamal, and a recorded message, I think, from Chomsky. Ellsberg may or may not show up in person or live stream in. But there's also a probability that there will be additional musical performances by both Michael Franti and Boots Riley.
Boots? There too? Okay.
That would be fucking
That
dope,
would be pretty
dude.
nice.
What
time is it gonna be?
2. Starts at 2. Starts at 2.
I
We goes 2 to 6.
Catch you live. especially.
So, and then the 28th and 29th, there's home run for Julian events in LA. 3rd of July, I'll be back in LA. It's Julian Assange's 50th birthday. We're holding
call me
events.
on that one in LA because I might try to come out and meet up with you guys.
Please do.
the
Please
LA.
do.
I've
We've
been
got
trying to get out more. I mean, I know like Convo Couch. Like I see, there's times when it's like they're filming something. They're over at an event, and I'm getting off work right at the time, and it's like fuck, I got this, or I have to catch them the next time. So I want to try to make sure to get out there for get out there with you guys in the flesh for one of these events too.
dude, it's a good time. It is. We have fun at
Well,
these
and I
things.
want to show my solidarity too. Show that hey, I though my audience may not hear me speak about these different issues nearly as often, they still are issues which I find very, very important. And I'm always listening to people like Steve, listening to the Convo Couch, listening to Nico House, listening to, Frank Analysis. I mean, I can go down the list. Mostly MCSC, network, who have all been doing great work on it. But there's also other people who are outside the MCSC network who, I can go Hardlands Media. We've had Kit on here. And one of these times we still want to have, a kind of a crossover session with Hardlands Media. Also have them in here. And there's many other people. I can keep going and going and going. The Progressive Soapbox. There's many that have talked about it. But we don't talk about it nearly enough. And so I want people to know that yes, it is an issue that is dear to us also, though we're often tied up with a bunch of different issues.
Hell yeah. No, and we're hoping to, and dude, I hope you come out, man. It's fun as fuck. We're trying to get, I don't know, as many people as fucking possible out of these things, and we probably need to do a little bit more in terms of cross pollination and movement. But we had for about 8 months now talked about not necessarily like walking away from, but widening the lens on the advocacy that we do and extending it to all political prisoners, targeted journalists, and whistleblowers, and then use that as a vehicle to explain why and help advocate for day-to-day victims of the carceral state. So
I like this here. He says, added in, I want to be a part of the chat heard around the world trademark as the political matrix. You want? Hey, I like the term. Especially last week we had somebody in the chat all the way from Germany. So finally, I guess now I've got around whatever bannings that they had on me on my other channel, and now people in Europe are seeing my content again. I know for a short period I got banned from a couple of countries, but that kind of shit happens when you're not afraid to say what the hell's on your mind on any issue. And looking back at my other channel, it wouldn't be a consistent theme, but a lot of times I'm talking about issues which may not even be forefront of the news at the time. So it doesn't necessarily catch everybody's attention, but for those in the know, they know why it aggravates certain people at the top. So I'm going to keep on trying to do that. I'm going to keep on being as much of a pain in the ass to the elites as I can. I feel that was my purpose in life. Let's see. And I have some content coming out tomorrow. It started out as one video, and it's morphed into a much bigger project than I planned on it being. Oh, this just walked into a bra. I'm confused. Or bra. Oh, got it. Or bra. Man, and I see it keeps. I guess it's trying to end us. It keeps kicking Emmanuel out. That happens on occasion, but I'm so glad to have Steve drop through and I want to make sure to do this more often. Like I told people before, I said that.
Word. Thanks, Steve. We appreciate that.
Hell yeah, man. Thank you.
Yeah, I said that I want to make sure to put those links out there and leave it open for our different friends of the show to be able to just hop in whenever. If they're watching a live, like, you know what, hey, you know what, let me hop in on that topic, lend my voice. They always, are welcome. And just like, or if it's one of those cases where they might have just finished filming and they're like, you know what, I couldn't catch them earlier, but they're still on and they want to hop in. All my brothers like Steve, well, everybody over at Slow News Day, they are Slow News, yeah, I said it right. Slow News Day. We'll always have that. I mean, of course, Glory. I'm always trying to bug her to get her on here, but I always hit her up at the wrong time. I mean, Glory's extremely busy, and so I understand.
Yeah,
dude. Doing great work. And then, as you all know, I'm still in works and getting Allie on. We talked about the Great Reset and a couple other issues, and it'll be plenty of topics. But just know that these are some of the things that we work on behind the scenes that we try to get together. It's kind of like in superhero movies. You always love when you see whatever superhero get with another one, and I figure anytime we can kind of team up together and tag team some issues, it's always a great and fun time. And so that's what I'm always trying to do. Those who know me know I try not to be about strife. There is one thing that is trifle that I am going to bring up before we close out, because a lot of people don't know this. And normally I hate to go after, for one, another content creator, especially if we're, for the most part, on the same views. I'm not going to say the person's name, but I reached out to them quite a bit of time when they first started getting into commentating. I reached out to them about starting a panel together when I was doing my Young Black Leaders panel, because I felt like there wasn't enough Black voices getting a shake. So my goal was to try to bring that together. Well, that person completely snubbed me hardcore, and then literally went out and then created the very idea which I proposed to them. Now, because of the fact that my audience and some of my other content creators that I had with me, they were kind of new into commentating. It didn't catch as many eyes. They, on the other hand, went and encompassed a handful of people who already had shows together, taking my idea and running with it. So I just wanted to get that off my chest. Most commentators, I don't have any gripes or beef, even ones where I used to work or used to be on together, but not anymore. Hell no, it's not Nico. I ain't got no beef with Nico at all. For a while, I wondered if Nico was kind of pissed at me because I had set up an interview with him a while back. Maybe it was like 6 months ago. And at that time, I got like Twitter banned on everything, and I got banned on Facebook. And I didn't get Nico's number before that. So I had no way to let him know, hey, I'm fucked up. And so he had to wait around. And when I finally, got a hold of him, he was like, oh, it's no worries, no trip, we'll work it out, another time. And I just haven't got back around and hit him up for another interview. So Nico did not snub me. I'm perfectly cool with Nico. I mean, well, I don't have any gripes or beef towards Nico at all. So just want to make sure to clear that air for those people trying to guess. Chris and May, you guys have anything you wanted to get into?
Nope.
No, not right now. I mean, we 3 hours in. It's like almost 3 a.m. here. So, I'm kind of ready to crash myself.
I'm sorry, dude. This happens.
Yeah.
No, you good. Most times I'm all right. I just had a busy. I had a long ass day today. Then I was watching Brooklyn and Milwaukee, so that kind of got me sidetracked. But Brooklyn lost, kid. They lost in overtime. That's a major. I mean, granted, they had injuries, but that was a major thing in the basketball world. But that was it.
I mean,
That was it. I don't have much else.
somebody get a little close on their guesses out there. I mean, let me go ahead and wrap this thing on up. But this has been, myself, Young Morpheus, other known as Marcus Cage, here with my good buddy Cy Lawson and Mr. Emmanuel the Blue Maverick, and here also with Steve Quicken himself, the founder and the leader and the testimony of Slow News Day, and I consider a good friend of mine since I've been doing this whole thing. He's been somebody I've been able to always hit up and shoot the shit with, and Steve has gave it to me straight. In fact, like some of this stuff which I talk about now, it originated from sit downs and chit chatting with Steve. Because, like for instance, I thought chemtrails, all that was completely nonsense before I met Steve, until Steve broke it down for me. So, I throughout this time I've been creating content, I've learned a lot, and I value people around me who have been, that have been instrumental in helping me get to where I am as a content creator today. So hopefully I get further along, and hopefully, we just keep building and growing, and we get the truth and the message out there. That's the only reason why we do this. You just get that information out to the people, and maybe some of you are smart enough to figure out something better to do with it than we can. So that said, this has been the Political Matrix. Hope you all have a great weekend. Possibly I may go live tomorrow for my Hebrew Apologetics page. I want to leave those out there who, in the political world, who don't know a lot about the Bible, who get tired of evangelicals, trying to throw the Bible around. I want to leave that open so you all can ask me any Bible question you want. They say the Bible is sharper than any two-edged sword, and I'm going to show you how to cut Christians. So you want to do that? You want to make evangelicals look stupid with the book they say they're supposed to believe in? Make sure you catch that live stream. If I do it tomorrow, I will make sure to try to blast it everywhere I can as much as possible. But any question you have on the Bible, unload on me for that live stream. And make sure to catch my now looking like 2-part on the Talmud for Hebrew Apologetics. It's going to be definitely very interesting. You guys have a good evening. Good night.